Welcome to the sixth installment of the Director Dossiers podcast. In this episode, we're going to detail the writing, filming, editing, and our thoughts and analysis on Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Danny, we've done the research. We've watched the YouTube videos. We watched the TikToks. We've bought the book, so it looks like we've read them.
Yeah.
And now we're ready to talk about Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay.
We watched people react to Eyes Wide Shut on YouTube. They go, whoa!
Whoa! His eyes are really wide shut.
All right, what's in that dossier?
Okay. The writing of Eyes Wide Shut. The genesis of Eyes Wide Shut came when director Stanley Kubrick read the novella Traum Novelle, written by Arthur Schnitzler. However, when exactly Kubrick first read the book is unclear.
So there's a few stories of when he first got his hands on it. We know it's somewhere around the 50s or even the 60s. Kirk Douglas talked about how on the set of Spartacus, when they were having trouble and they didn't like each other on the set because Stanley Kubrick was unhappy with the amount of power that Kirk Douglas had over him as a producer, Kirk Douglas brought Stanley Kubrick to his therapist. And was like, let's figure this out. Like they were a couple or something. And he said that the therapist suggested the book to Stanley Kubrick. That would have been like 1959, let's say. But James B. Harris, who was Kubrick's producing partner on The Killing and Paths of Glory and Lolita, he said when he met Kubrick, he had already read it, and that was in 1955. And Kubrick was married to a woman named Ruth Sobotka, who was a ballet dancer. In Killer's Kiss, I believe that's the one with the ballet. The ballet dancer in that is Stanley Kubrick's wife, Ruth Sobotka. And she was a Vietnamese Jew, just like Arthur Schnitzler was. And people speculate that maybe she's the one who granted him the book. Because I think I think they got married, I think from 54 to 57 they were married. But I don't even know if Stanley read it until the 60s because he had to get Jan Harlan, Christian's brother, his brother-in-law, to translate it. I think it was in... Vienna's, what country? I'm an idiot. What country is Vienna? Italy?
I think so.
Am I stupid? How do I not know where Vienna is?
Who cares?
No, I think it's in Austria. It's Austria.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank God.
Cut the part where I say Italy.
I thought I was an idiot. Turns out you're an idiot.
Dang it.
All right.
The therapist recommending the book, it seems like an odd recommendation for the situation.
Now that I think about it, the therapist's like, oh, you would love this. Like, really?
Like, this is going to fix my relationship with the
Kirk
producer?
Douglas?
He's like, I think you have the wrong idea about what we're going through right now.
Kirk Douglas like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, this is what the book says. All right, what's next, guys?
All right. Kubrick decided he would adapt Traum Novelle in 1968. And in May 1971, Warner Brothers announced that it would be Kubrick's next movie, and that filming would commence in December of that year.
So really quick, I want to get back to Traum Novelle really quick.
Yeah.
Arthur Schnitzler, the author, Stanley Kubrick said he was one of, if not the greatest writer of the 20th century. But also, like a lot of people probably back then, he was also a very weird guy who was very upset. He was obsessed with all this Freudian psychology, and he was like pen pals with Freud almost. But also he kept track of all of his orgasms in a book. It was just like 734, 10 out of 10.
How do you rate it? He rated it?
I don't know if he rated it. I just added that. But so that's pretty weird. But the book is interesting because if you read it, it's essentially just the same exact story. The only thing that was added for the movie was the opening ball sequence, and then the day in the life of Bill and Alice. And then the book starts at that conversation where she's like, hey, I like Navy guys, not you, idiot. And it's very interesting because there's almost all the conversations are as verbatim as possible from the book. There's obviously some scenes are changed up and stuff. There's also a scene where Bill walks home from the orgy. That wasn't in the script or the movie.
Okay.
And it's very interesting to read. It's also more obvious and obligatory in the fact that like a lot of it's a dream. One of the things is probably the biggest cue that it's a dream, other than the fact that he's like, this feels like a dream. Is she tells him like that we were in Denmark on vacation and there was a guy I wanted to have sex with him. And later, the password to get into the party is Denmark. So it's like, okay, this is a dream. This is all the information that's being scrambled up in his brain and projected back at him, right? And then there's other sequences like where he's walking on the street, and he was like, all of a sudden it felt warm, even though it was like the dead of winter. It's Oh, it takes place at a during a carnival,
Yeah.
Mardi Gras. I don't know what
Oh,
Mardi
okay.
that's. I heard that's what's
New
Mardi Gras.
Orleans.
Okay,
Yeah, Mardi
it's
Gras
during
is-
like those celebrations. I
Mhm.
think it's Mardi Gras, but in the movie it's Christmas. All the mechanics of the book are in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just updated and colloquialized and stuff. But you said that Warner Brothers announced that he was going to make it. Kubrick decided he was going to make it in the year 1968,
Mm-hmm.
which is somewhat significant because Ruth Sobotka, his ex-wife, died in 1967, a year before.
Mm.
And Christiane was Kubrick's wife, who was his wife from 57 to up until he died. Christiane Kubrick, she said that Dream Story was very connected in his mind to his marriage with Ruth Sobotka.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop saying Sobotka without like
It's fine.
why it wasn't made around then. He was editing Clockwork Orange, and then of course his next movie would be Barry Lyndon after that. And he just did a lot of research for Napoleon. He wanted to repurpose a lot of those research materials for Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
So that was the reason maybe why he didn't do it. But also Christiane said he was gonna do it, and I was like, dude, we're too young. Like we haven't been married that long. You know, it's been maybe like we've been married since 57, like 10 years, 13 years maybe. Maybe not do it now. Like we're so young, we have a whole life to live. And he was like, all right, whatever, fine. And then after he did Barry Lyndon, he was like, okay, it's the late 70s. Annie Hall in Manhattan just came out. I want Woody Allen to be in a black and white art house, version of it. Maybe it'll be pornography. I don't know. I think he mentioned he floated with like the idea of it being pornography, and she was like, "I'll divorce you." What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the early '80s, after Kubrick saw The Jerk with Steve Martin, he calls up Steve Martin. He goes, "Hey, you should come over here, pal." And he goes, "Okay." And he walks in. They play chess and shit. And then he pitched him what would be Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, it's funny how I saw in an interview Steve Martin talking about how he was in London shooting another thing and he got invited over to Stanley Kubrick's house to talk about the project. And then Steve Martin's just like, yeah, I never really called him back about that. And the interviewer's like, you never called Stanley Kubrick back? And he's like, yeah, I didn't really think I was supposed to. He just didn't think that much about, being
Just
in his...
change the course of movie history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Steve Martin one. And then in the late, I think in the late '80s, Kubrick got Terry Southern, who's the writer on Dr. Strangelove, who's a comedic writer. He got him to do like sort of like a treatment or some sort of version of the script. It wasn't a full script, but I think it was a treatment or an outline. And he made Bill, or Fridolin's character, because he wasn't Bill yet. He made him a gynecologist, and it was sort of that angle.
Mm.
That's sort of a similar idea. There's a movie called Dr. T and the Women, starring Richard Gere, and that was directed by Robert Altman. It's about this guy. He's a gynecologist, and all the ladies love him, but he doesn't have a single other man in his life.
Mm.
Where he's like, oh my god, like all these women are crazy,
Yeah.
sort of that thing. I don't know that's not. It wasn't like that thing, like these damn bitches. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh my god, and then yeah, I don't know why I'm talking about that movie.
Mhm.
Screw it. Let's do that movie really quick.
Yeah. I don't even know what movie that is. All right.
Nobody's seen that movie.
In 1994, Kubrick hired Frederick Raphael to finally adapt Trom Novelle. Raphael wrote a memoir of his experience with Kubrick titled Eyes Wide Open.
So that book, Eyes Wide Open, behind me, it's pretty good. It's fine. I think his portrait of Stanley Kubrick is consistent. It doesn't seem like that's Stanley wouldn't say that. Everything he talks at, like every line Kubrick says, I'm like, okay, he probably would have said that. Where so originally Raphael was gonna do this adaptation of this thing called Prisoner of Zenda, which was apparently a big classic book, and he was like, oh, I'll write that and I'll adapt that, and he had a handshake deal with these guys, and then Kubrick called him and said, hey, you want to work with me? I can't tell you what the project is, and I can't tell you how long you're going to be working on it or if it'll even be made, but blah blah blah. And he was like, well, I'll work with Stanley Kubrick because he's Stanley Kubrick. They met actually years before at a party. They were playing. This is why I was like, all right, Kubrick would say that. They were at a party and they were playing a game, Never Have I Ever, and like the one lady would be like, never have I ever, had a full bottle of champagne to myself. And they're like, oh, and they would raise their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then one guy is like, oh, never have I ever, fucking, I don't know, did something embarrassing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Kubrick's turn. And then Kubrick went, "Never have I ever played a game like this." And it's like, of course he would say that, dude, because he never lets you get in. He'll never say anything that gives you like how that cues you into how his brain's working or what he's. But Frederick Raphael's relationship with Stanley Kubrick is sort of complicated because if you watch a lot of interviews with him, he talks in these sound bites where like somebody goes, "Did you like Stanley Kubrick?" And he's like, "Did I bloody like Stanley Kubrick?" I don't know if that was his accent. I forget, but he was like, well, yes, I guess a little bit. Like he knows that he's going to be in a documentary one day about Stanley. So in public, he's in the more sensationalist stories around the book have been like this is an expose on Stanley Kubrick. But if you read the book, which I did in preparation for this, it's sort of just people describing their professional work together, and there was some friction there. It was never like, "You son of a bitch. You sleep with my wife?"
Yeah,
like it was never something crazy, The craziest thing there was this William Morris incident, as it's referred to, is usually Raphael. He said, "Usually I'm used to, getting the draft of the script, which I'm paid for, and then sending it off to my agent, who then says it to the guy who hired me." And he sends it to William Morris, and he told him, "Don't put it in the folder," because he didn't want Stanley Kubrick to know that it went to the agency. I think that's true. I don't want to misconstrue things. I don't want to make him seem deceptive or anything. But then they forgot to do that, and they gave Stanley the script with the William Morris folder, and he called like, "Does anybody read it? Like, is there a copy lying around? If there's a copy, you have to send it to me right now." Because he was very secretive about it. Because when he hired Raphael, he didn't let him know what the book was. He just had a photocopied version of the dream story without the title or the author or anything, and just had Raphael read it and said, "What'd you think?" He's like, "Yeah, it was pretty good." He goes, and Raphael says that he predicted it was Schnitzler, which is like, okay, I'll give you that. You're lucky I don't know anything about books, pal, or else I would call you out.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you can just read and be like, "This must be this author, this random Viennese author." Like, what?
Yeah,
it's crazy to me. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying that's either
could do it,
either he's a liar or it's very impressive. And then they were talking about the script of the book. And he goes, "Yeah, but some of the writing did seem a little too blunt." He goes, "You think Schnitzler is blunt?" He goes, "Damn it!" And he's like, "God damn it!" I told them what the thing was. And then also, because obviously this was coming off the back. This was 1994. He hired him, so this is coming off the back of like Schindler's List and stuff. And Kubrick was going to make his own Holocaust movie, Aryan Papers, which we talked about in the Stanley Kubrick podcast, which you can watch on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And they were talking about that movie, and he goes, "What did you think of Schindler's List?" And he goes, "Oh, it was pretty good or whatever." And he goes, "Not really about the Holocaust, is it?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, the Holocaust is about killing people. The Schindler's List is about success. It's about people who get saved or whatever." And that's where that quote came from, was that book. Also, speaking of the Holocaust, Kubrick's wife, Christiane Kubrick, who's a very nice lady who's never done anything wrong. This isn't like an indictment on her or anything. But her uncle was this guy, Viet Harlan. He was a German filmmaker. And people like guys like Fritz Lang, for example, who were German filmmakers at the time, Hitler was like, "Bro, how are you doing this movie?" He was like the Christopher Nolan of Germany, being like, "Yo, how are you making this fire movie? I'm Hitler, by the way. I'm a really bad guy." And then he's like, "I don't know. I see the pictures in my head." And then Hitler's like, "You got to make some movies for us Nazis, dude. There's no way nobody will not see that movie if you make it."
That was a good one.
And he goes, "Oh, I'll get back to you."
Yeah, sure.
And then he just got on a plane to the U.S. That's his version of the story. I'm sure. I don't know. But then Viet Harlan, so Hitler went, "Oh shit!" So he left. Hitler or Joseph Goebbels, he goes to Viet Harlan and he goes, "Hey, sick movies. You want to make some movies for us?" And he goes, "Yes, dude. I'm gonna make the worst movies of all time." Or the most hateful movies of all time, because I'm sure the filmmaking's probably fine in them. But and then that was Christian's uncle, was like the most prolific Japanese German propaganda filmmaker at the time. I don't know why I said Japan. I guess they were friends back then.
They were, yeah. I guess that's a way of putting it. Allies.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not making any indictments or judgments about her. Just an interesting tidbit.
Interesting fact.
Yes.
When Raphael's involvement with Eyes Wide Shut ended in June 1996, Kubrick courted writer Sarah Maitland and then Michael Herr to work on the script.
Also, I just want to point out, Frederick Raphael working with Kubrick, a lot of their disagreements. There was some stuff where Kubrick would be like, "Well, make it more like the book, write it so it's prose, not like typically like a screenplay. Write it so that it's It's almost like a novel. And then he would do that. And Kubrick would be like, all right, take all that stuff out. Like, I don't know if I like that. And then he'd be like, well, this is what you wanted. And Kubrick would never give anything to his writers. He never gave them a flashlight to where they're going, sort of. Who was it? Was it Ian Watson, I think? Emilio Alessandro, who wrote Stanley Kubrick and Me, which is behind Danny, the book behind Danny, which is a great book. He talks about, he was Kubrick's assistant for 30 years, and he talks about, well, he was in the car with Ian Watson. He was driving him home. And he goes, I don't know what, like, Ian Watson's like, what does he want in this story? They were talking about AI. He was helping write a treatment for AI with Kubrick. And he's like, the story, I don't know. Like, I don't know what Kubrick wants. And then Emilio was like, yeah, he was talking about, like, Pinocchio or something the other day. And he went, Pinocchio. Because Kubrick would never say, like, hey, I want you to do Pinocchio. Kubrick would know he wants to do Pinocchio, but he didn't want he didn't want to cue the writers in. I don't know. He was very particular with that. And with the writing with this, he was like that as well. Raphael said he felt like a mechanic that was just making the parts that Kubrick would put together and turn to gold at the end. It wasn't a collaborative buddy. Hey, we're gonna write a movie. It was I need to get this from you, so let's go. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. The Sarah Maitland and Michael Herr. I forgot about that. So Sarah Maitland. She was also writing AI. She wrote, I guess, either before or after Ian Watson was on board. She had something to do with AI, and she was writing it with Kubrick at the time. And so Sarah Maitland, Kubrick sends her, again, the same photocopy thing without the author's name on it. And he made it look like he just read it the night before. He was like, hey, this is a good book, huh? And he gave it to her. And she was like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know if I like it. And then the next day in the mail, she gets her contract is terminated, and she never talked to him again.
Really? Dang.
And then Michael Herr. What?
She just said the one wrong thing you shouldn't say.
Yeah, he's like, we're done working together.
About a book that he's been literally reading for like 30 years.
30 years, like, this would make a great movie. And she's like, this
it's kind of
sucks,
weird.
dude. And then Michael Herr, Kubrick asked him, he's like, hey, we got to colloquialize this script, make it sound like New York, baby. He goes, come back, it'll be fun. Just like 2 weeks, we'll figure it out. And he's like, hold on, I don't know, it's not going to go 2 weeks. And he goes, what I thought in my mind was, Michael Herr says, what I thought in my mind was, all right, he says 2 weeks, this is going to go on for 6 months of writing. I'm going to get underpaid. And, I'm basically just going to be working for Stanley my entire, time for 6 months. And Kubrick, it was also off the books. He was like, don't get your agency. Don't get the Writers Guild involved. Don't even worry about it. And he was like, I'll pass, Stanley. And then afterwards, he goes, once I saw how the production was kind of running away, I was like, thank God. But then also after Stanley died, I was like, shit.
Yeah, I should have worked with him one more time. It's like, because all the stories about the production are just, how long it went. So I'm sure he was on the outside like, oh, thank God.
And we'll get
2
to like
2 weeks, right? Like anybody who worked with Stanley Kubrick knows that 2 weeks is just not
2 weeks means a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then also I have a list of because I've read this. Oh yeah, so if you want to read the script for Eyes Wide Shut, don't buy this thing behind me, Eyes Wide Shut, a screenplay by Stanley Kubrick and Frederick Raphael. That also contains the novel or the novella Dream Story, but the shooting script is essentially they watch the movie and then they just transcribe the movie. Oh, yeah. So it's everything is exactly as it is in the movie. So, but if you want to see the actual shooting script or one of the scripts, you can go on the internet and there's one with a narration. There's a narrator being like, Bill was like, oh shit, she's hot. There's that one that you want.
How much different is that from what's on screen?
I can tell you right now. So I read the script, and here are the major differences I saw. There was a sequence where Bill and Alice drive to Ziegler's house, which was cut. There's a narrator throughout, like I just said, who was like, Bill was like, oh shit, I gotta have sex right now. Go, geez, oh man. It's literally like that. Where he was like, oh God, what's going on here?
Oh geez, oh God.
I've seen like comments about the shooting script, and everybody are like, thank God they cut
There's no narration.
Thank God they cut the narration out. Domino in the prostitute was originally a sociology student whose father was also a doctor like Bill. That's important because I always thought there's a shot when Alice calls Bill when he's with the prostitute and he's like, look, I can't really talk right now. I'm trying to have sex with this girl. There's a book that says introducing sociology, like right in the bottom of the frame. I always thought it was prominently placed. I'm like, where did that come from? That's just a remnant of that cut detail from Domino's character. I like that they cut it because it adds like a weird ambiguity that the movie that helps the movie and that overall like dreamy like what the hell feeling. Mr. Gibson, who is Mr. Millich, who was Gibson in the script, his clothing store isn't called Rainbow, which is important because the password in the movie is Fidelio to get into the place, but in the script it's Fidelio Rainbow.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna make a schizophrenic thing.
Let's hear it.
The two models, a big like thing in this movie is Bill following the rainbow to like a sexual adventure.
Yeah.
Where the two models are like, "Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?" And you can say that Fidelio Rainbow sounds like Follow the Rainbow. I don't know if that's true, but I think, but in this,
that's a stretch.
in the book Dream Story, the password is Denmark. And that's more of an indicator that it's a dream because in the book, Alice is like, remember when we were in Denmark and I wanted to have sex with that guy, you know? But in the movie, he just made a Fidelio because maybe the rainbow thing might have been too much of a suggestion that it was a dream. So instead, they just put it to the clothing store being Rainbow. Bill. Oh, also there's in the book when Fridolin is his character in the book, but Bill goes to Mr. Millich's costume shop. And there's the girl is having sex with the guys or whatever, and then Bill tries to talk to the guy, Mr. Millich, like, hey, you should probably get her some medical attention if she's deranged and she's having this behavioral. It could be a mental problem.
Yeah.
And he's like, shh, don't tell me about my daughter, bro. And they cut that out. The orgy scene was much quicker. It wasn't as intriguing. It was kind of just quick, and he was like, oh, look at this stuff, and then he got out of there. There was a deleted scene where Bill goes back to Marion, the woman who was like, I love you. That's also from the book where he goes back and they kiss, and then he's like, actually, on second thought, no, I'm gonna get out of here. And then
Marion's the daughter whose dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was no Christmas store final scene. It just ended with him going back on, I'll tell you everything, dog. And then.
And when you say the orgy scene was quicker and he just got out of there, there's no part where he gets confronted?
He does get confronted, but it's much less ceremonious.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's as interesting. All right, what we got next? Are you on your phone right now, dude?
Oh yeah, my bad.
We're doing a podcast here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just liking and subscribing and leaving a comment on our video right now.
This is dumb. Never mind.
Come on, what? I get into character and it's dumb.
All right, maybe I'll put that in. We'll see.
The filming of Eyes Wide Shut. During pre-production on Eyes Wide Shut, Warner Brothers chairman Terry Semel urged Kubrick to cast a big star like he did with Jack Nicholson in The Shining. This eventually led to the casting of Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
So the story always goes that you'll hear it everywhere. Kubrick wanted a couple. He wanted a big couple like Alec Baldwin or Kim Basinger or Basinger. I don't know how to say her name. Or whatever. But apparently that's not true. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman at a press conference when it was being released. It's like a 35-minute video. I'll put it in the Eyes Wide Shut playlist in the description. They talked. People were like, "Why did he want a couple?" And they said, "That's not true. He never said anything about that. He didn't want a couple. He just, picked us, whatever." So that's interesting. And then, but them being on the movie was a pretty big deal because this is a time where Tom Cruise in particular was getting paid $20 million. That was his the floor of what you would pay him if he wanted to be in a movie. So he was making $20 million. He could have done 2 or 3 movies a year, but instead was like, no, I'm going to take a pay cut. And they say pay cut, it's like they make it think he's making something like 5 or 10 million, which is still giant. But he took a 25% pay cut. So instead of getting paid 20, he was getting paid 15.
Oh.
15 is the figure I saw.
Yeah.
But also him and Nicole had to relocate their entire family basically. All their kids had British accents by the time the movie was done.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they spent a year and a half there. I said, well, when they met, Tom Cruise, it's funny because before they met, obviously they were married when they met Kubrick. Tom and Nicole Kidman.
I was like, we're married when they met.
No. Tom and Nicole land a helicopter on Stanley's property because it was the most convenient thing for him. And Stanley's just sitting there on his own, like, hey, shit, nice helicopter or whatever. And then years after, you could see Tom Cruise, like after they got divorced, slowly say, "I landed the helicopter." He doesn't mention that Nicole was there, which is just a funny thing.
But Tom Cruise was flying the helicopter.
No, he wasn't. No. He goes, "I gave the coordinates to my pilot, and I landed the helicopter."
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
well, you told him to land the helicopter.
He doesn't. He just thinks people won't ask the questions about it. Yeah, I wonder how the whole filming process affected their relationship. Like, did they get divorced relatively soon after? I mean,
there was a lot of rumors and gossip around the set where Tom and Nicole were seeing a sex therapist because the movie was so whatever. But we'll never know the exact. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman have never said anything bad about Stanley Kubrick. Anytime somebody's like, he did this, right? And they're like, no, shut up. Tom was a pallbearer at Stanley Kubrick's funeral.
Oh, wow.
They were like really good friends near the end. And that was like the first time where Kubrick stayed friends with the main guy. Usually he would go, oh, like we know each other so well, but I'll see you in 30 years, never again.
But to be fair, they weren't really done with the movie
That's
yet,
true.
so you never know how it would have gone. But it's funny because, you see in the interviews with Tom Cruise where he says, I really took that character home with me.
Yeah,
It's a tough place to be. But you're wondering, is is he acting right now? Because it seems like he's acting.
It seems like he's acting. You're talking about there's
every interview he's just like, I feel like I took that character home.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's there's a documentary about Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, and it's funny because Tom Cruise narrates it, but then all of a sudden he's like getting interviewed, so it feels like he's interviewing himself, and he goes, "I took that character Bill home with me." Like he's doing a scene.
Yeah.
I like Tom Cruise.
But he takes his dramatic pauses, like in real
He's
life.
doing the Frederick Raphael. Did I like Stanley Kubrick? Well, yes, I did.
As he did with Full Metal Jacket, Kubrick decided to shoot Eyes Wide Shut in England and had a giant New York City set built in Pinewood Studios.
So they had it built like a giant H. So they can have a corner here and a corner here, and if they needed to change the main street, they would just change up all the signs and stuff on the street and try to make something look different. So they would shoot on one side. Honestly, people say they're like, at the end of the day, we actually did need maybe one more street. Maybe it should have been shaped like a A, where there was just one more street at the top. But Stanley Kubrick, his daughter Vivian Kubrick, who made the behind the scenes documentaries to The Shining and Full Metal Jacket. She also did the music on Full Metal Jacket. And he goes, hey, can you go to New York and take some reference photos for me? Because I haven't been there in 30 years. I don't know what it looks like now.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, sure. And she goes to her friend Lisa Leone, who is a photographer. And she goes, hey, can you take these pictures for my dad? He's like, yeah, sure, okay. And she takes some pictures. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks go by. And she's just taking whatever. And a few weeks go by, and she gets a call from Stanley Kubrick saying, these are the best photos research photos I've ever seen. And what happened was she sent the photos to Vivian, and then Vivian gave them to Stanley. Stanley goes, these are the best photos ever, Vivian. Holy shit, good job. And she's like, well, it wasn't actually me. He's like, what? And then he hired her, Lisa Leone, as the set decorator because he was so impressed with her work. So in pre-production, she was basically, measuring the streets to see how big they were and taking photos and sending him garbage cans. She would buy a new garbage can and then would knock on people's doors and go, hey, do you guys want this new garbage can? Because Stanley Kubrick wants yours.
Yeah.
And Stanley Kubrick sent her to his old apartment and knocked on the door. He's like, hey, my name's Lisa. Stanley Kubrick used to live here. Can I measure it? Like, what? And they took and people would let her in. She spent a long time doing that. And then eventually she came over and actually played Bill's secretary.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. The whole thing about New York in this movie is that it feels, someone, I can't remember who said it, but it doesn't feel like it's actually New York. It just feels like some made up city, to me at least.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been to New York a fair amount of times, and from my experience, nothing feels quite like that. I don't know.
Scorsese said,
yeah,
he goes, I don't think it's supposed to be New York. It's maybe supposed to be New York as you would see it or feel it in a dream.
Yeah.
Because he goes, you just look at everything. Like, look at the details. Like, there's James Street. There's no James Street.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Mhm.
and I think how much of that is just reading too much into. I think that is somewhat true. I think because like when the street is empty during the scene where he's getting stalked, that's an intentional choice to make it look. What the hell is going on
Yeah,
here?
there's
You
no
know?
one walking around at this time. It's a relatively busy area,
Yeah.
busy looking area, but there's nobody walking around.
Mhm.
It's definitely an interesting take on New York. If it is supposed to be New York, it's an interesting
Yes,
take.
that's a good point. There's nobody else who's New York in a movie that looks like this one.
Yeah,
Whether it's good or bad.
definitely. Yeah, 100%. Filming was originally scheduled to begin October 28th, 1996, and wrap February 7th, 1997. However, filming started a week late and a full year behind the schedule.
So, the first month of shooting was crazy. A month of shooting. When we filmed our no budget thing,
Mhm.
like think about how much stuff we got in a month, right? But also we're just idiots.
Yeah.
This movie, I'm not saying this like as a derogatory in a negative sense. I'm just saying how crazy it was, how slowly they were going. So Harvey Keitel was going to play Ziegler, and one of the first scenes they shot was Ziegler meeting with Bill and being like, "Hey, look at my tennis racket. My arm is great. Thanks. He's the best guy in New York." And they were filming for a couple weeks, and Harvey Keitel was just pissed how slow it was going. And I think it was Frederick Raphael who even said that apparently on the set they were, because we'll get to exactly how they filmed stuff later, but the first couple days he was like, "All right, see the Kubrick movie," and then a few days later they still hadn't gotten to his stuff. Then a few days later he was just, "What the hell?" And then he ended up just leaving, and the official reason was due to scheduling conflicts.
But it was probably
They were, and then they filmed the scene where Bill goes to Marion's house with Jennifer Jason Leigh as the actress, and she's like, "I love you," and then they filmed that scene, and then they filmed one more scene, like one spot. So, and then after a month, they filmed those three. They filmed 2 small scenes and a big scene. After a month, 2 of those scenes would have to be reshot.
Yeah, not even used.
So they got one small scene in a month, and then it kept going and going and stuff like that. Let me see what else I got here. Oh yeah, people were getting sick like crazy. Tom Cruise, they would be in the middle of filming like a crazy scene, and then Tom Cruise would just get, this horrible flu. Nicole Kidman would get sick when they were shooting the costume shop in the Rainbow thing. I forget his name. The guy who in the Batman Begins, who's like, "This is a nice coat." That guy, but also he plays Millich. He was screaming so much that he got laryngitis, and they had to pause filming for a few months, or not a few months, but a few weeks on, I guess, his scenes, or a couple days.
Which scene is that where he's screaming a bunch?
When he finds the 2 Asian guys with his daughter.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the Mandy, who the actress who played Mandy, I think they had another actress playing her, and then during the orgy scene, they casted another actress. So Mandy was played by Juliette Lewis. No, it can't be Juliette Lewis. I forget. I'm just pretend I just said the right name. I'll put it in later. Ready? Her name was this.
Julianne Davis.
Yes. And then the lady who played sort of her version's character, or her character's version in the orgy scene, was another lady named Abigail Good. And Abigail Good later talked shit, where she was like, "Why did Kubrick use you for that scene but not
Julianne Davis?"
And she goes, "Well, it's probably just because I had a better body than her."
Damn.
I was like, "Damn, dude, what the hell?" And then let's see. Also, oh yeah, speaking of the orgy, the orgy scene took 2 months to film, right?
Jesus Christ.
Just kidding. And actually, the first half of it took 2 months to film.
Oh my lord.
Just the scene where they're going,
Dude, that's another creepy. The music in that is very, very
I think
weird.
they had to change that in post production.
What?
I'll tell you, or after release.
Oh,
the
really?
music in that.
Why?
Because
it
they
was
used,
freaking everybody out too much.
I think, because they used some excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita? Is that how you pronounce that?
Probably.
And they used some
Bhagavad
some excerpts from that, and I think played it backwards.
Oh.
And then people got mad and they changed it.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
how did they go and like play it? And
I don't know.
it's creepy.
I forget exactly.
When I was watching this, I was wondering like who was in charge of vetting the women in that scene.
Is this your way of saying, where did they find those girls?
No, come on, don't put me on the spot like that.
Damn, those girls were excellent. How did you? Where did they come from? Can you give me their number? So originally they were so Helmut Newton, who I think was a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about that world, that modelish world or whatever. But he took these pictures, these nudes of all these ladies, these erotic photos, and Kubrick was like, "Nice, let's do that for the orgy scene." So they called up him and were like, "Hey, where'd you get these models?" And he said, "Here's where they got them." And then they found out that they were too expensive, and they're like, "Well, we don't have to see their faces." And this is not something that I'm not paraphrasing this. This is what's actually happened in the book, the Eyes Wide Shut, making of Stanley Kubrick's final film by Robert Kolker and Nathan Abrams. Blame them.
So it's their fault.
Yes, they got girls with like banging bodies, but who had just had ugly faces. Apparently, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
but apparently that was cheaper than
Just like a
getting actual models because like we don't need to see their face. We just need the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where they got the girls from.
Yeah, it's just one thing about that is that they all have very very similar bodies to Nicole Kidman. I feel like at least like the tall.
Yeah, I guess that's
slender.
true.
But-
Well, that makes sense if like once we get into later about
Yeah,
our
yeah,
discussions
we'll
of
talk about
what's
that.
a dream or whatever. I think some characters, especially I think Marion, I think she's sort of supposed to be a dream version of one of the dream versions of Alice in the movie. We talked about the big set that they built in England, and there was a moment where there was some leaked set photos that got published, and Kubrick was like, "Son of a bitch." So he went to Warner Brothers and was like, "Hey, we're going to beef up security and, do something about this." And like, we can't just, what do you want us to do? And he goes, "Build the walls higher, dude." So they
Dang.
got these giant panels to put over the walls. Yeah, dude, he was way ahead of his time. He
like, we're gonna build the wall.
That's where Trump got it from, dude.
He's a huge Kubrick fan.
I can't. No.
Yeah, why?
I was gonna say like guys who've been building walls their whole lives said we've never seen anybody build a wall like this before. But in terms of why the movie took so long to film is because usually how you have rehearsals, a couple weeks of rehearsals before you film, and then once you get there, you're just filming. You set everything up, and the actors get there and they go, "All right, let's figure this out," and they start filming. But let's say Kubrick was going to do a scene. Like the scene where she's like, "Hey, I wanted to have sex with this guy once." And he's like, "Son of a bitch." Let's say they would film that scene. They would go in, spend 3 days rehearsing it without any cameras or whatever, and they would go, "Oh, maybe let's try that. Maybe we should do that." And they would just see where it went and try to find it. And then
They'd rehearse it with digital.
and then they would go to a video camera. Sidney Pollack said that we would film it on digital. And then he would play it back and go, "Hey, see how you turn your head there? Do that every time. That was good."
Mm-hmm.
And then they would film it. And then actually, the long the repetitive million takes things is probably exaggerated on this movie, just like Kubrick said it was exaggerated in other movies. There was instances where he would do a lot of takes. I don't think it was every single shot they would do 60 times. Like there was allegedly one scene where Tom Cruise walked through a door 95 times.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the Faye Masterson who played Sally. There was an interview, this great podcast, media thing called the Kubrick series, which I'll have linked in the description. This guy interviewed her, and she said that they never really did more than like 10 or 13 takes, which is maybe more than the conventional. I mean, the conventional directors maybe do like 5 to 10, but it's not anything near what people are saying. So the shooting wasn't really just take after take after take. That was probably a part of it, but it was mostly just spending a few days on rehearsal and stuff, and then Kubrick being like, "Well, let's just reshoot it," because they talked about how he was very time oriented and he was very patient on this movie. Because people say, maybe towards the end of production, he started to know that his body was kind of failing him a little bit, and he knew that this was probably going to be his last movie. And he goes, "All right, well, I'm not just going to rush this. We'll take our time and figure this out."
But he also said to someone that we just built a whole New York City here. We're not just we did all this work to get it ready. We're not just going to do 5 or 6 takes and say, we're good. Let's move on.
Exactly.
We're going to get our money's worth of takes too.
Yeah. Well, so there was in that documentary we talked about Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures. There was a scene where they intercut Tom and Sidney Pollack's interviews, and they're talking about a time where Sidney Pollack, when he first showed up to reshoot the scene I talked about that they did with Harvey Keitel, where he's like, "Bill, hey, your wife's hot." They filmed that in like 2 hours. Yeah, and Sidney Pollack's like, "Dude, what the hell what's taking so long on this movie, dude? We just got that done." And Tom's like, "Okay." And then there was they did the scene where Bill goes to Ziegler's house again, and Ziegler's like, "Hey, this is what we're doing." And he goes, okay, so let's do it. And then he walks through the door and he goes, how was that, Stanley? He goes, that was good. And he goes, I could try it faster. He goes, yeah, sure, let's see that. And he tries it faster. He goes, that was pretty good. Why don't we try slower? And he goes, okay. And then 2 weeks later, they're still filming the scene.
Walking through the door.
It took him maybe like 3 or 4 weeks to do the scene, and it was just And then he was like, okay, and he goes, Stanley, this is taking a long time, huh? And Tom Cruise said, Stanley turned to Sydney and goes, well, I didn't think it would take that long, but don't you want to get it right?
Yeah. Well, not saying that like a scene like that is more important than other scenes, but that might have just been it is an important scene, and he probably just wanted to make sure he did get it right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not saying that it's more important than any other scene, and that might have been one of the ones where the exaggeration is true, where he's taking a million takes, but it is a very important scene that you want to get right.
Right, like what you said, you don't want to rush it and feel like, because he was obsessed with not giving an idea any consideration. Like like if he filmed a scene and was like, oh wait, we should do that, he would reshoot it, right? But he didn't want, like when he does research, he would read everything. He said he would keep reading on the subject until he wasn't learning anything new, because he wanted to know everything. Because he doesn't want to like read a book after he makes the movie and there's an idea where he's like, I could have used that in that one scene, And that's basically what they were doing with the filming. If we just had another day to film it, maybe we could have improved that, made that scene 10% better.
But he also wanted the actors' input as well. Like we said in the last one, you said he would take everyone and just ask them, what do we think? Give me your ideas, or what do you think? Where is this headed?
Right.
So
he would constantly, like Lisa Leone, who was the set decorator, and there was some disputes about her credit after the movie came out. Like she wanted an art director credit, and she got like set decorator. But there was a story where Stanley he goes, they didn't have an ending, because they just had he goes, I'll tell you everything, and then the next morning they're like, we're awake now, buddy. And it's very reminiscent. It's basically like line for line from the book, the final scene that they had. And Stanley kept saying, like, yeah, we don't have an ending. And Lisa Leone was just like, here's an ending. I'll write you an ending. And then wrote him an ending. And I don't know if they used it. They probably didn't use it. But he was letting people write endings.
Yeah.
Like Full Metal Jacket, we talked about how he just went up to Matthew Modine and was like, how do you think the movie should end?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Like, what?
And like there was a funny story, Alec Baldwin. What's his name? What's the Baldwin that was in Full Metal Jacket?
I can't remember.
Adam Baldwin, maybe, who plays Animal Mother. He goes, one time, Stanley came up to me. He goes, hey, do you ever listen to My Way by the Sex Pistols? And he goes, yeah, what about it? He goes, I'm thinking about ending the movie with it. And he's like, okay, Stanley.
Sick.
Yeah. And I listen to that song when I work out now. The song's
nice.
so goddamn cool.
Uh-huh.
I would have loved if that movie ended like that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked, though.
Well, I will say, like, asking people about the ending of this movie seems like a hard thing to wrap up, almost, in a way. For me, and when I'm thinking about how it should end, like even the way it did end, it still seems like just a strange type of story to try to wrap up. Like,
Right.
where are we?
If there's any, I'm going to say something stupid, but I'm going to stand by it. There's nobody on Earth who watched this movie and just got up and did the slow clap.
Yeah,
Like, there's nobody who went brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just people going, what? Like, I understand, like, you can like it on the first try, but there's no way that this movie didn't make everybody go, what? I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah.
But if you're listening and you got it on the first try, congratulations, you're smarter than everybody.
Yeah. Join our first.
You get movies on the first try.
Type down below, I got it on my first try, and I know everything about this movie. The editing of Eyes Wide Shut. On February 3rd, 1998, Kubrick announced that the filming of Eyes Wide Shut had completed. However, editing the movie proved just as tedious and exhausting as the shoot, as Kubrick had over 1 million feet of film to sort through.
So, like I said, he said that the filming had completed, but also, so that was February 1998. They were originally scheduled to finish February 7th, 1997, so a year behind schedule. And also, they still had a month of shooting of reshoots to do in May and June, because they had to reshoot the scene with Marion's character. He wanted to reshoot that.
Marion, which one's
I love you.
Oh, okay.
And
did they?
Yeah, they reshot it. So they originally shot it with Jennifer Jason Leigh, who is, you would probably know her from The Hateful Eight, the lady who gets hanged I mean, she doesn't get hanged in that movie. No spoilers. It's been 9 years.
Yeah. Why
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I spoiled that for you, but come on, dude.
We'll put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this for Hateful Eight.
Welcome to our episode of Eyes Wide Shut. Also, spoilers for the movie Hateful Eight. All right. What are we talking about?
Reshot the.
Oh yeah. So they went back and reshot that, and then finally they were done. This was the first movie that Kubrick edited digitally, and also they said that what he had is, instead of, because when somebody watches a take, they watch the take and they go, all right, go to take 7, and then they go to take 7. But Kubrick had 6 monitors set up, and it had, all of them were playing different takes. He goes, this is a much better way of looking at it, comparing takes, because you can like cut to here and then go here, and look at everything. But also, you think editing, it's like, oh, nice, 9 to 5, we're at it, baby. But they start a deadline, and I know Kubrick was very tedious in the editing. And so they were still up until like 5 a.m. like every night. Yeah. And Kubrick's just like, play it again. And the editor had to hire an assistant, and then the editor's assistant had to hire assistants. Oh my Lord. And also just to sort out all that film, because also what they have to do if you're going to edit digitally is you have to go frame by frame and give each one a number. So like when they edited Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer's big, that was the last big movie that was made a big deal about being projected on film and stuff like that. When they make that negative, when they're editing, they're not just cutting the actual negative and then going, all right, try that, no, take that out. What they do is they scan every frame digitally, and then every frame has its own number, and then they have the digital files, and then make the cut, then lock picture, and go, okay, so cut frame 1738 to
1738.
I didn't even realize 1738 to 2000, and then they give that strip and they put it, and then they assemble the cut, and they had to do that on this movie as well. I can't believe I just said that. Yeah. I was like, why does that sound familiar?
Yeah. You have to like cut in the song somehow. 1738. Yeah, that's like very. I mean, the task of doing that is just gives me nightmares actually thinking about trying to do that, honestly.
And also, like in Oppenheimer, like they scan it now. I don't know how sophisticated that stuff was I don't know if they had to like write every single frame on each film. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like when they labeled each each film frame with the number on the negative.
How would you even do that?
I don't even know. I don't know what the process was.
Small.
But the music, because I talked about Vivian Kubrick. This is an interesting story which I did not know before I researched this. Vivian did the music for Full Metal Jacket, of course, right? And then Kubrick was like, "Hey, you're gonna do the music for this one, right?" And she was like, "Ooh, I don't know," because she was in America at the time, and it was around this time where she got involved in the Church of Scientology, and this is when they started to estrange her from her family. Yeah, and Kubrick was like writing her like 40-page letters, like, "Please come back, like please," and she was like, "I don't know," and so she didn't do the music on this one. So he hired this lady, Jocelyn Pook, to do some music, because he heard some of her music and was like, "I love your music. Do you have any other weird music?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "My music's weird."
Yeah. Thank you.
And he was, I don't know. She was like, "What do you want, Stanley?" He's like, "I don't know. Just make it weird." I don't know. And he goes, "Just make it weird and sexy and secret."
Yeah.
And that was basically, yeah.
Did she do the music for all of it? I think so.
I know a lot of. We'll get to that in terms of what they had to do, and after he died. But a lot of what they did, a lot of what she did, there was a few scenes where she scored, and then other scenes they just had the temp tracks that they were using, which is temp tracks are like, let's say you're editing the movie 300, and Zack Snyder was impressed by this movie Titus, and he goes, "Oh, I want the scene to be like that. Get the music from Titus and just put it there for now while we edit." And then that's the temp music. It's the music that comes in before what you actually have.
So they just left the temp music?
Yeah, I think it was like Ligeti who also did the music. Ligeti is the same composer who did the from 2001. Yeah.
Yeah, the one, I mean the main theme that's just like one note.
That was I forget who it was the composer on that, but that was performed by Dominic Harlan, who was Jan Harlan's son, I believe. Jan Harlan is Christian's brother, who Christian, her uncle was a Nazi, propaganda filmmaker.
Wait, let's go.
I think I want to talk about the Nazis again.
Yeah.
All right, just if you're hearing this now, I may have cut out the part where I mentioned the Nazi stuff earlier because I
backed himself into
myself into a corner where like I'm not that I was.
Yeah.
God damn it!
No,
I'm doing it
you
again.
were like he wasn't like no. Oh come on. This just happens when you talk about Nazis. You're like, wait, hold on.
I'm not saying that anything. I'm not.
He's
Look,
Nazi-ing.
yes. For those of you who are horrified right now, I did not say anything that would give any kind of goodwill to the Nazis whatsoever. I just didn't know what kind of judgment I was making by bringing up the fact that Christian Kubrick's uncle was a Nazi.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's a thing. I don't know.
And now we're back at the same spot.
I'm back at the same spot. I have to cut this out again.
No,
All right.
no.
What's the next thing we got?
After more than a year of editing, on March 3rd...
Actually, stop. I want to talk about the Nazis more.
All you got the... I'll turn my mic off. After more than a year of editing, on March 3rd, 1999, Kubrick had to show a print of Eyes Wide Shut to Warner Brothers executives along with Cruise and Kidman so they could sign nudity releases.
So, apparently this cut was apparently 95% finished. And and Jan Harlan said like he didn't want to like show anybody yet, but he sort of had to. And when he sent one print, and also this is Kubrick, who's very paranoid and secretive about his material, had to just send a print to America and was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he gave special orders to the projectionist that was going to be showing the private screening. Don't watch it. Just put the thing on and leave the room. Come back in another few minutes and then change the thing. And so he didn't let the projectionist watch it. And then he had another private screening at Chidwick-Berry, which is where he lived. And and the reactions for that were very, very positive. Again, I don't know how much of that, like I said before, I don't know. I guarantee you they're film executives. I'm sure they know, they're very knowledgeable about movies, but they're essentially businessmen.
Yeah.
Who watched Eyes Wide Shut, an unfinished cut of Eyes Wide Shut, went, that's amazing. Like, there's no fucking way they knew what they were talking about. I'm sorry, executives.
Yeah.
I'm not. Again, I like this movie.
Or maybe they knew about how all of his movies were, in a sense that the one of the executives probably like, yeah, in 20 years people are gonna really fucking love this movie.
Yeah, that's true. Terry Semel seems like a pretty level-headed dude. Who was the main guy? Who was the main executive? Who seemed like he was working around with Stanley and Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, because I mean, in an interesting way, you couldn't look back on all of his films and. I mean, we talked about this a lot in the last podcast about him, but a lot of his films didn't open to the greatest reviews, and people didn't really understand them at first. But over the years, like this one seems to be like on YouTube. Just there's so much about it, like people are talking about it all the time. So it seems like it's making a resurgence.
Right, Kubrick's movies. In terms of like, if you looked at let's say the interest over time for a lot of movies like Rampage or San Andreas. I don't know why I'm thinking about rock movies also. But also, if The Rock was supposed to show up to set when we started this podcast, he'd still be 5 hours late. Do you know that
No.
The Rock's been late to his movie sets?
Oh, all the time.
Apparently. I don't know why I'm talking about it. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. The interest over time. So if like Rampage or something, that movie where there was a big gorilla, the interest over time would spike when it came out, and then it would just drop off. Nobody ever talks about it again.
Yeah,
Until now,
exactly.
you see a little bump. But with Kubrick, it's just his movies are flatlined, where they're just all there's not really many dips and highs and lows. It's just people are always just kind of watching it, you know, because his movies have this tremendous half-life where they. The more you watch it, and the further time goes, the more people appreciate it. We talked about Sidney Pollack. He was like, every one of Stanley's movies, they'd come out, all the critics would be like, oh, he's ruined it. He doesn't have it anymore. And then 10 years later, the movie's a classic. It's pretty much what happened with Eyes Wide Shut. We'll get to the reception very, very soon. But anyways, those executives were very happy, and Tom and Nicole were very happy with the movie, and they told Stanley that, and Stanley was like, oh shit, finally.
Yeah. Well, like that was
he was just very ecstatic that they liked it. He was his spirit seemed uplifted.
Yeah.
Thank God nothing bad happened after that.
Oh, it's okay.
What happened?
Reportedly, Kubrick was ecstatic after the reactions to these screenings and continued to work on the movie until March 7th, 1999, when Kubrick died of a heart attack in his sleep.
No.
I didn't know.
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. 1999.
I didn't even know he was sick.
Oh my God. Norm.
I'm pretty sure if Stanley Kubrick was dead, I'm pretty sure I would know about it.
We'll call up Christian.
Call up Christian. Yeah, so unfortunately he dies. And people were saying also, I want to clarify on the Stanley Kubrick podcast, if you got to the Eyes Wide Shut thing, crazy if you got
Goated.
4 hours into the podcast. And then if you're here in this podcast, holy shit, goated.
Yeah, you're the best.
But we were sort of so tired by the end. I misconstrued stories from Emilio D'Alessandro, who was one of Kubrick's assistants, and Leon Vitali. I said that Emilio brought Stanley home and he couldn't get through the door. Then the next day he was dead.
Okay.
Leon Vitali, that was his story. Emilio went into Kubrick's office around this time, and he was like, Stanley, and Stanley was just sitting there, and he was like, I can't get up.
Oh, really?
He was like, I can't get up, Emilio, and Emilio had to help him up and bring him to his room. And he was like, Stanley, just go to sleep, go to bed, please, just take a break for a while. He was like, yeah, sure, we shut up, and then he leaves, and then the next day he gets a call from Stanley, and he goes, Jan, and he goes, no, this is Emilio, and he goes, oh, hey Emilio, what the fuck? And then he hung up, and then a few days later he was dead. He had a heart attack. And that was just his body was just completely exhausted.
Yeah. After all that, I mean, yeah. But you said during filming he was already on a decline, right? It wasn't just like a sudden decline.
Right.
It
because the lady who was the Steadicam operator, her name was Liz Ziegler, and after a year she was like, I want to go back to my family, so she left, and another guy came in. I forget his name. It's like Peter Cavacity or whatever. But there was a certain point that at the last month of shooting, Kubrick was just essentially on camera. So he was directing the movie and then was on camera. He was getting no sleep. We talked. Christian was always like he just didn't sleep at all. It was like it was the only thing he did that was ever stupid was he wouldn't get any sleep and he wouldn't take any medical advice. You know, because his dad died and his dad was a doctor and that was the only person he'd trust.
So he's like, well, I got no doctor.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Now on. That's crazy.
Yeah.
On March 13th, 1999, work on Eyes Wide Shut continued, led by a team consisting of editor Nigel Galt, assistant editor Melanie Vinercunio, Leon Vitali, Jan Harlan, and Christian Kubrick.
It's Jan Harlan. Thank you very much.
Jan Harlan.
Whatever. When in terms of there's a lot of theories on the internet, like fan theories and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people who debunk these fan theories, which is like, sure, some of these theories may be ridiculous, but you can't really debunk someone's interpretation of a movie unless part of that interpretation exists or is based on something outside of the movie itself. Like, oh, we all know that Kubrick loved this, so in this movie, this being in there means something or something. Yeah. It's like sort of, I mean, to each his own, but you can't really base an outside factor on the movie. But I wanted to. So I'm not debunking an interpretation. I'm debunking a theory that after Kubrick died, that they cut 20 minutes out of the movie because there was some bad stuff that couldn't be shown.
Yeah.
So I have a list of all this is documented in the Kubrick archives. There's a list of all the work that had to be done that was written down in all these documents and stuff. And in this book, Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick and the Making of His Film by Robert Kolker and Nathan Abrams, they go through this list, and I just wrote it down just so I can go through it all. Okay? So, post-work after Kubrick's death. 2 shots need to be chosen as per recent discussions regarding the flashbacks. The placing of these shots is decided. This also requires the need for 1 new shot traveling to New York. So maybe the scene where he's going to the mansion or coming back or going to the mansion again. That needed to be so. And also the flashbacks they're talking about, or I think I would assume is Kidman with the naval officer in the blue monochrome. That was originally monochrome, and then they had a tinted blue. So the placement of that, like in the cut, it was like, all right, 2 seconds here, and then they just had to put the shot in there. And then there's several lines of dialogue that are to be looked at in regard to finding alternative readings and 1 alternative action at the start of 1 scene. So maybe they just did another take of somebody walking through a door because maybe the continuity was wrong or something like that. A final decision as to the format and the main end titles has to be made. That's self-explanatory. The flashbacks have to have some form of visual VFX, to reinforce the fantasy aspect of the scenario. That's the blue coating on the monochrome stuff. The shot being taken to New York by Lisa Leone is definitely required and replaces 2 shots in the existing cut. So, the night Kubrick died, he was on the phone with Stanley. She's like, "What, Stanley?" Because they were.
You said the night Kubrick died. Oh, she. Okay, yeah.
She was on the phone with Stanley,
Mm-hmm.
and she was at the point where she would get calls from Miss what?
Mm-hmm.
Like they liked each other, but she was it's like it was like a friendly like what? Okay, yeah, sure, Stanley, I'll get a shot. Where it was the establishing shot of Ziegler's apartment, and Kubrick wanted it reshot because it didn't look like there was enough going on there. He wanted some more limos and stuff, and so he goes, "Hey, can you go in New York? Just film a pickup of that. I'll throw some cars in there." And she's like, "All right, sure, Stanley. I'll see you later, man."
Mm-hmm.
And then she hung up. And then of course that night he died.
Yeah.
But she was like, I mean, I think that was the only the only extra stuff they filmed afterwards, because that was the last thing he told her that they definitely knew that he wanted.
Yeah.
So she went and reshot that, and then they just put that in the cut to replace those 2 shots. Much of the music in the temp mix is confirmed for the final version. We talked about that before. How maybe it was the opening credits song that they used twice in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were going to replace that with something original that Jocelyn Pook or somebody else did. But then they said, screw it, let's just keep it in there. We'll buy the rights to it. There are 2 scenes that require new scored pieces of music. The style and feel of the music is known, but no new composer has been chosen. Self-explanatory. The main and end titles music will need to be scored. If a suitable alternative cannot be found reflecting the music already used in the film, I already said that because I'm 2 steps ahead of everything,
Mm-hmm.
even my own list. An alternative piece to the Shostakovich may need to be found for some of the montage sequence. This is the same piece used in the temp as the main and end titles music. That's the thing. Do you remember how the main titles goes? Like as soon as I hear it,
just the one note.
no, that's
thing?
not the main titles.
Oh,
That's
okay.
fuck. I'll play it. Let's play
Yeah.
it. All right, I got the music. It's this. 4 seconds, no copyright. So that music they put in the main titles, and then I think that's when they're referring to the montage sequence. That's the sequence where Bill's like doing all of his doctorly stuff, and Alice is taking care of Helena, and they're just going throughout their day. And they just needed the music to play over that. What else we got? Fix the drive to Long Island. I don't know what that means. Fix music and orgy. Fix Ligeti at the Long Island gates. Add atmosphere to Bill's office, ? Add Bill convo and dream sequence. I don't know what that means. Fix music over Bill's calls to Carl/Sally. I think that's just, from the call to Carl to Sally's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Lose Bing Crosby and Toy Store and Jingle Bells. So I guess they were playing some music in the final Christmas store, Toy Store scene originally. There are still several characters that need to be revoiced due to either their English accents or poor performance. I've noticed that a few, you can hear some accent slips in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll get to them. And then there's a number of lines that need to be looped by principal artists. So everybody was so paranoid. That took a long time to get through, but I hope it was worth it. Everybody was so paranoid. That team, they were so paranoid about changing any of the cuts.
Yeah.
Because they were like, this is the best we're going to have of what Kubrick wanted. Because obviously, like that I don't think the picture was locked. On a Stanley Kubrick movie, even if the movie's already released, the picture isn't locked.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he
yeah.
deleted and burned and erased from the face of the earth the original ending of The Shining. If you guys if you are over 50 years old, I guess, or if you're our age and your parents went to go see The Shining, if they saw it opening night, they have seen this ending, and they're the only people on earth who have seen it.
It's crazy.
So who knows what he would have done in the months leading up to the release. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently I heard that the cut that he showed was 2 hours and 39 minutes, which is the cut that we all know. He said to Terry Simmel that it was going to be 2 hours and 19. He wanted to cut 20 minutes out of it. So there was still, this is the closest we'll ever get to what the cut would have been, but I don't think the picture was locked. But again, actually, the fact that they left it in is actually, because we know that originally that was the cut was 2 hours and 39 minutes. There's no 20 minutes. Like the only reference to 20 minutes of cut footage is the footage that Kubrick would have cut out himself if he had lived.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no, because if you're not familiar with the theory is that there was a lot of maybe child grooming or child abuse at the orgy, like pedophilia stuff that there was. Then Hollywood was like, we can't have this, and then they whacked Kubrick, which I don't think is true.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I don't know. That one is just
Well, it's a thing where because Kubrick obviously is a guy who's been associated with a lot of conspiracies like the moon landing and stuff, and I don't blame people for thinking something strange happened because it was just a giant. I think it's a coincidence that of course his movie it was dealing with these secret, dealings that the elite was going through,
mhm.
and then of course he dies 666 days before the year 2001.
Mm.
And and it was sort of like a perfect storm for conspiracy stuff
Yeah, yeah.
where people were like, well, that was weird,
Mhm. And it's one of the I don't know if it's a weird movie. I don't know if it's one of the weirdest movies I've seen, but it is a weird.
Yeah.
There's weird things that happen in the movie that I can definitely see people being like, "What is he trying to say with this?" You
Right.
know?
And I think how much time do we have, just in case we don't cut ourselves off? And I think
25.
there's two sides of people like, oh, he was exposing, this grand cabal. That's one end of the spectrum, and then there's another end going like, shut up, that's not what it's about at all. It's like, well, it's about that a little bit. It's like somewhere in the middle where he wasn't maybe consciously going, I'm going to take these sons of bitches down, but he was like, this is a weird thing that happens. Let me just throw that in. That's an interesting subject matter, because what attracted him was the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the only changes that were made that Kubrick probably wouldn't have approved of, that you can say is some sort of censorship on the part of Warner Brothers, was the movie was contractually obligated to be rated R, and they were having conversations with the MPAA about what can and cannot be in the movie. He had somebody call, I forget who it was. Was it Emilio maybe, or no? It was Lisa Leone. He had her call the MPAA and pretend to be a film student, going, so how do you guys do your, how do you guys decide what's a rated R and what's NC-17? And they basically said, we just figure it out on the movie. There's no really rules.
Yeah.
The only rule is like you get one fuck. You can't show an erect penis because then it's porn.
Really? That's
the line between porn and a movie is an erect penis.
is a boner.
Is a boner.
Oh my god.
Which is true in real life, just as it is in movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they had to avoid the NC-17 rating, and this was a very highly debated thing at the time where they had to go in and CGI. You can go on YouTube and see it. It's shitty quality, but you can go and see the original movie in theaters. The orgy sequence, a lot of those, acts that people were doing were covered by CGI guys in robes and even CGI naked women. It looks terrible.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden there's a CGI lady standing there, and it's like you can sort of, even with the shitty quality, you can tell. So I can't imagine how it looked while it was projected in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. But even Kubrick may have been considering that, because if you look at the measurements of the lighting on the orgy scenes in this particular, he wrote down very detailed lighting schematics and in measurements of, okay, this light was at this Kelvin, this was here, this was 10 feet away, because he may have anticipated that he was maybe going to have to
redo it,
maybe, or just cover some stuff up somehow with the CGI thing. Because they did do some CGI tests. There was a guy named, I think, Larry Passan or Jason Passan. I think it was a guy's name. He was one of the visual effects guys who had to. Also, there was some negative scratching on the film. Some of the shots, like Bill crying to Alice, there was they had to like paint out the negative scratches and stuff as well. And he was involved in that. But he talked about how Kubrick. This might not be interesting, but Kubrick called him for the Aryan papers because they wanted to colorize black and white footage. And it was black and white footage that Kubrick shot of his house and then had it turned into color, which is interesting. Like, what was he getting at with that? Like maybe
just a different look. I think that, I mean, he might have been onto something, because if you see some of the old war footage that is now being colorized, it has a very cool look to it.
Yeah, like
It has an
They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah, it has an interesting look to it. So maybe he just thought in his mind, maybe this will have a cool look to it or something. Right. Or it just gives him more freedom to colorize things the way he wants it, change the colors of reality or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Might have been a cool look for this movie, too.
Actually, with this movie, what they did, the film stock, what they did is they shot the movie and then they developed it too long on purpose, so all the lights would have this weird haze and it would brighten everything up a little bit, which is interesting. which is it's kind of a scary thing to do, to be like, all right, let's do this wrong
Yeah, let's
on the
fuck
only
this
piece
up.
of material. Yeah. So yeah, and I think we'll talk about the lighting, but I think the lighting does give you a weird, dreamy feeling,
Yeah,
particularly in the Marion scene.
For sure.
The lady going, "I love you."
The release of Eyes Wide Shut. The first teaser was shown to theater owners at the 1999 Show West convention in Las Vegas on March 8th to the 11th, 1999. This teaser was edited by Kubrick before he died.
So I always thought that Kubrick died, and then the Warner Brothers was like, well, let's make it sexy so people can go to, because this is a weird movie. Let's just get people to go to the theater.
Mhm.
But apparently, the genesis of that whole marketing campaign actually came from that teaser that Kubrick edited, where it begins with Nick Nightingale going, "Bill, I have seen some things, but never anything like this."
Yeah.
And then it cuts to all like sexy stuff happening. It's like
Mhm.
Nicole There's nudity in it apparently.
Oh, wow.
Nicole Kidman's like, they're like, "Baby did the bad thing," whatever that song is. And they played that, and it was just shots of that intercut with Nicole and Tom making out in the mirror, and people were like, "Holy shit!"
Mm-hmm.
And that exact trailer, I found it somewhere where I think it's on the behind the scenes to this, the Stanley Kubrick Visionary Filmmaker Collection. The copy of Eyes Wide Shut has a trailer that's very similar to that. It doesn't have the nudity, so maybe it's edited slightly. There's another one on YouTube that you can see that's different, but it begins the same way. So that exact trailer that was shown may have never been shown again. So that's interesting.
It's actually interesting to think about how, I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it's actually probably the best move. Just make it look like what it is. But also, it plays on people's fantasies. Like the source material, or the movie is sort of about fantasies, and by making the teaser seem like it's going to be something where everyone's like, well, I want to see that. I want to go watch that. And then they go in, and it's just about like, now look inward on yourself. You know why you're here, but let's get to the
honestly, it's always like, oh, this is gonna be the hottest movie ever. And then you get to the movie, it's like, you disgusting pig. You're like, God damn it.
How dare you?
Dude, you have a boner right now? You're like, no. That's exactly what the movie does. That's such an astute observation. Who would have thought that would have been the best thing we had to say about Eyes Wide Shut on the podcast? That's funny.
Just came out of my brain. What can I say? On July 16th, 1999, Eyes Wide Shut was released in the U.S. It opened with $21 million and went on to gross $162 million worldwide off a $65 million budget. It received mixed reviews from critics, and audience reactions were even worse. The movie received a D- cinema score.
So, the money it made, adjust for inflation, $65 million. The budget was about $130 million. So it's The Fall Guy coming out this weekend. The same exact budget, essentially. And then the opening, of course, $21 million. That adjusts to $39 million opening weekend. And then the total gross adjusts to like $318 worldwide. So it was a sort of like a soft box office success. But also the reason why audiences didn't like it, for the reason we just stated, because people thought they were going to see this thing, and a lot of the critics, because obviously we talked about in the Stanley Kubrick episode, he's known for pushing these things. Like, so what's he going to do with sex in this that nobody's ever done before? It's how hard, how erotic is this? How erotic is this going to be?
No pun intended.
Yeah.
How hard is this going to be?
How hard is this thing going to go? And also make me. But the critics, I saw there was one critic blurb that said this is the sexiest movie of 1950.
Damn, what the hell?
but again, but a lot of these critics, it was mixed reviews. Like people, I think Roger Ebert said it was awesome. Richard Schickel said it was awesome. And then a lot of like Gene Siskel and some other guys, Janet Maslin, were like, this is kind of shitty. I think Janet Maslin said it was shitty. She might have liked it a little bit, but because people were judging the movie based off of the marketing campaign, and then they went in and it was like this weird thing that you sort of have to watch 3 times to know if you even like or not.
Yeah.
And I understand audiences being like, what the I don't.
Yeah, I mean, based off other things that Tom Cruise has done, if you go in to see a movie for that reason, thinking it's going to be like some sexy movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and then you get this deep, like, existential, heavy thought thing.
Right.
I could see why you'd walk out being like, what the hell was that?
I can see why it would seem like that the reason it was weird was due to incompetence rather than the misleading marketing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That movie wasn't good at being sexy at all.
Yeah.
But also, like, let's say that they marketed it as, hey, this is a weird movie. Then let's say it makes less money, but the reviews are better. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's probably what would have happened. But either way, everybody likes the movie now, except for the people who watched it back then and were like, yeah, that was a weird.
Yeah,
movie.
I'm never watching that.
Everybody
movie
who's still
again.
watching it today is like, actually, that was pretty sick.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it's technically, because we talked about the final cut, it's technically sort of an unfinished movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But I don't know in 1999 what the opinion on Stanley Kubrick was at that time. I'm sure because he'd had movies out for a while. I'm sure people already knew what his movies were all about, but maybe not as well as we do now. That it's something where it might take a few watches to really consume it correctly.
Well, I think he was the guy. Because like Tom and Nicole were like, we're doing Stanley Kubrick.
Well, yeah,
you know, because there was a lot of on-set rumors of like, oh, he's sort of like the Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson, like he's only making them eat cheese sandwiches. Like, no, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of stuff where people were like, Tom Cruise is upset. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Lee Ermey, we talked about it in the last Stanley Kubrick podcast, which you can watch on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And Lee Ermey called, so in an interview in like 2004, he said that Stanley Kubrick called him and said that, the movie's a piece of shit. I fucked it up.
Mm-hmm.
Tom and Nicole had their way with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's but why would he say that? Like, obviously he's probably lying because he's like the only guy who says that. Everybody else around Stanley says that he was very, and also Tom was a pallbearer at his funeral. Like they were getting along like a lot. Tom and Nicole never said anything bad about Stanley Kubrick ever.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they had any bad things about the relationship at all.
So I don't know, unless Stanley was just in this weird feverish state and just called him. Like I don't know why Lee Ermey would say that if he's if he's lying. You know, I'm not gonna say definitively which were either. I don't fucking know.
It's just an interesting addition to the already hectic thing about this movie and the production of it, I guess.
Yeah, that was a thing. Like that, this was the movie people. That was like it was like obviously we took Guinness Book of World Records, the longest movie of all time, production wise, 18 or is it 15 months of continuous shooting? You know.
Well,
and
one what? No,
you go.
No, one of the other things that I want to talk about with like the audience who was seeing it in 1999, it's like there's no more Stanley Kubrick movies coming out. So if you nowadays are kind of going out of your way, I wouldn't say going out of your way, but you're looking up Stanley Kubrick, like I want to see a Stanley Kubrick movie, you already have a preconceived notion of what his movies are about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if you're hearing about him nowadays, you probably are seeing, an Instagram reel of like Eyes Wide Shut, and being like, well, okay, let me check this movie out or something.
The studio would be trying to make Eyes Wide Shut into sexy memes or something, or sexy reels, like sexy TikToks.
They should just rerun the whole marketing scheme just on 13-second little reels on YouTube or something.
But also, this was the movie. So, like, obviously, like the gossip around and all the rumors and stuff. But this was the movie people were sort of rooting against. Not like everybody was like, this movie's gonna suck. But it was such a big deal in Hollywood that it was, and it was so big that some people in the industry wanted it, or not the industry, but like critics and stuff were like waiting for it to just be like, it's shade. They just wanted the headline of like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah. There was a lot of, it's like sort of like when Avatar comes out.
Because everybody knew that the production was taking so long, right? So they were
So.
just waiting, like, oh, it must be taking long because it sucks or something.
Yeah. Do you think we're treading water? Should we talk about our analyses?
Yeah, we can.
Getting into our overall analysis and thoughts on the movie, I do think that, again, it's an unfinished movie. And I've seen this every time I watch it, the first 40 minutes, I'm like, this kind of sucks. Especially the first like 4 times I watched it. And then something happened the other night where I went to bed and I was like, all right, let me put Eyes Wide Shut on the background while I sleep. And then I ended up just watching an hour and a half of it. And I was like, that was the first time where I watched it and I was just locked in.
Yeah.
Usually it takes like 20 minutes for me to be like, this is weird. What is? Because I forget what the effect that the movie's going for. So I'm like, wait, does this just suck? And then I get sucked into it. And I think Barry Lyndon is a movie that Eyes Wide Shut I think is similar to in Kubrick's filmography because I think Barry Lyndon is more explicitly this, but they both deal with their protagonists sort of trying to get into this this upper echelon of class, like trying to break through this class barrier, and like so the opening ball sequence, which wasn't in the book, it's only talked about in the book. The book starts at that initial conversation, right? Also, Ziegler doesn't exist in the book. That was an invention.
Okay.
And so Bill goes to this ball, and with all these rich people, they go, "Do you know anybody here?" And he goes, "Not a soul. Like, this is what you get for making house calls, I guess." Like, he's sort of the lowest class guy there, even though he's stinking rich.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ziegler calls him up, and he goes, "Hey, Bill, I need your help because you're a doctor." He's only there in the room being let in on the secret because he's a doctor, not because he's Ziegler's friend. And if he was Ziegler's friend, Ziegler wouldn't have to say, "Hey, this is just between you and me."
Yeah.
He doesn't have to like make
They
that
would have
thing.
already known.
So, and then Barry Lyndon also talks about how, he's trying to get into the scheme his way into this upper class thing, but there's a threshold that he just can't pass through. And I think that's sort of similar in Eyes Wide Shut, because essentially what I think is everything that happens basically at the start of the Marion scene, where she's like, "I love you," I think that's a dream. And then it's maybe the rest of it is a dream. I don't know how much of it is a dream afterwards, but I think that's the moment where the dream starts. Because if you look at the Ziegler party, the Ziegler, it's all these rich people, and they're all dolled up and dressed up. And we talked about this. There's Christmas lights everywhere.
Yeah.
Rob Egger has this theory, who's a guy on YouTube, that the Christmas lights are representative or symbolic of a sexual desire, let's say, right? And it's sort of like a loose pattern. Like there's some instances where I can't really explain why the light was there, other than it's just incidental. But I think it sort of works in a lot of context in the movie. And so we're at that party. There's Christmas lights everywhere. Everybody's all dolled up, and then we get there, and every single conversation is about sex. They get there, and Ziegler's like, "Hey, your wife's smoking hot, dude."
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, and I guess the only thing is like Nick Nightingale, where he's like, "Hey, I know that guy."
Yeah.
That's not about sex. And then Alice goes to the bar, and then this guy wants to have sex with her, and they're just talking about being married and having sex and shit like that. And then Bill's flirting with these two hot models, which is crazy. You're just walking around with two models. Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy
yeah.
that he wasn't like looking around. Like,
Yeah. Well.
where's Alice? I guess the place is just huge. And then of course we go up to Ziegler's bathroom, which has no Christmas lights in it because he already got off. I might be retreading some stuff from the Stanley Kubrick podcast, but this is good.
Fine.
And he already got off, and then they go up there, and Bill sees something that like, "Whoa, maybe you shouldn't see this. Don't tell anybody." And then we get to the orgy. And what's the orgy? It's sort of the same exact thing from the opening party scene, where he goes to somewhere where there's all these rich people there. Everybody's all masked, and so their identities aren't being shown like they are at the party.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to hide the fact that they all want to have sex with each other, and there's no Christmas lights because they are having sex with each other. So there's no reason to put a suggestion that they want to. You understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So that movie, those two scenes are sort of an inverse reflection of each other. And I think Ziegler, people like Rob Egger and people think that Ziegler is a Red Cloak. And that's a good thing about this movie, is because it works on many different ways. If you see it as just everything's reality in a traditional movie structure, or like, a linear structure, it works. And it's a enthralling story. But also, if you go, the first half hour is real, and then the rest of it's a dream, it also works as well. It works on many different levels. So I think Ziegler, I'm not convinced that he's physically Red Cloak, but I think he's Bill's dream version of Ziegler is Red Cloak from the two parts, because those are the two guys where essentially Bill goes to this orgy where he shouldn't have seen something, that he saw something that he shouldn't have, and then he gets told by Red Cloak, "Hey, don't tell this to anyone." He sort of like does a similar gesture, because if you say any of this to anyone, pal will do some stuff to you.
Yeah.
And then Ziegler goes, just keep this just between us, And I think whenever you see a narrative echo like that, that's your cue that it's a dream. It's so subtle, which is like, again, like when I was like, I've seen this like 7 times. The third time into it, I'm like, whatever this movie's doing, I feel like I can't make an interpretation without sounding schizophrenic. It operates on such a thin line and such a thin margin, and every interpretation you can have of it is just borders on being schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And the stuff about actually let me try to stay on track, and then you can talk, because I know I'm yapping right now.
No, you're good.
The Marion, and I saw this on a YouTube video, I think, That the first time this part of the movie was opened up to me, this girl said, I don't know who it was. I couldn't find the video, but it was this girl describing what I'm trying to describe to you now is, this narrative echo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. Put it in the comments. I couldn't find, so I'm sort of plagiarizing her work right now, but I'm not. It wasn't my original idea. So we get to Marion's apartment after Bill has the conversation with Alice, and Alice is like, "I wanted to have sex with that Navy sailor," And so he goes to Marion's apartment, and we get there, and I think the lighting is the most dreamlike. Because if you look at the lamps in the scene, the lamps have this weird sort of glow, where it's not just glowing like it's blown out, but it's like this weird, almost like liquidy glow to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighting is so strange. The room's dark, but there's this weird sort of wet, feverish thing going on with the light. It's a very specific lighting. It's weird. And we get in there, and Bill walks in, and of course he's framed with the Christmas lights behind him. And then we see that Marion, and Marion loves him. Of course, we know this. And if you watch the scene with the knowledge that Marion loves him, you could see immediately. She's like, "Oh, Bill!" Like she's very nervous, and you can tell that there's something going on with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, like irrationally, just goes, "Bill, I love you." And he goes, "We barely know each other, right?" And then Carl comes in. He's like, "Thanks for coming. Get the hell out of here, pal." And then Bill leaves. She goes, and she's also telling Bill, "Hey, I don't want to live with Carl. Like, I just want to live near you. Like, what the hell?" And then Bill leaves, right? That scene is Bill's dream version of his conversation with Alice. If you say that Marion is Alice, they look very similar. They have the same hair almost.
Yeah.
And then Carl, who comically looks exactly like Tom Cruise's character, comes in.
Really comically.
You can say that he's Bill, and when he walks in, there's no Christmas lights behind him. Kubrick films him on the other side of the room. And so he comes in. He's like, "Thanks for coming." And the sexual tension in Marion's character is completely cut by this guy.
Yeah.
He's sort of just whatever.
Even the kiss that they have when
it's weird. Yeah, she does like a weird.
She's like
and he has like no charisma. So you can say that Carl is Bill's dream version.
Yeah,
of Bill of himself, and that Bill is the dream version of the sailor, because he's the guy that Marion has this weird attraction to all of a sudden, right? And also it feels weird because it feels like we just started right in the middle of this part of Bill's life where we don't know who these people are. We don't find out what they do. You're just all of a sudden we're just in this situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of narrative echoes like that occur throughout. Did that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I think about it almost as if right after that conversation that he has with Alice, like that's when he would have gone to sleep, and then that it's literally flip-flopping. The story starts from there. Like there's someone dead in the scene, which is sort of like him finding something out horrible,
right?
Basically, which is what she just told him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the room is all dark, it's all sad. So he feels like he's like projecting that on. If it is a dream, he's like projecting that scene, feeling like he is the guy who his wife doesn't want to be with. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense.
And even like we don't know exactly when it's a dream or whatever. The fact that we never really know for sure is sort of highlighted in the themes of the movie, where because the whole thing about Bill and Alice telling him her fantasy, is that he takes it like it was real, where he's like, "You wanted to have sex with another guy," so it's like like at the end, Alice goes, "I think we should be grateful that we made it through our adventures, whether they were real or just a dream." He goes, "No dream is ever just a dream," and so basically, they're saying that whether it was a dream or reality, it's sort of the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Which is you can take that idea and relay it on, or place it on what we just talked about, where we don't know it's a dream because Bill doesn't know if it's a dream or not, because he tells him this fantasy and he acts like it's real life. Yeah, like she actually had sex with this guy,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so what I wanted to say is that first scene is very telling of who Bill is before this whole debacle, the whole story. It seems as though, for me, if he wasn't stopped by being called up by Ziegler, he would have maybe gone off with those two models.
Right.
It seemed like he was being pulled away, and then he goes up and sees someone he knows who clearly just cheated on that guy, Ziegler. Ziegler just cheated on his wife, who Bill also knows.
Yes.
And he doesn't have any reaction to it. He's sort of putting it off. He doesn't pay much attention to it, which means he doesn't really care. So he doesn't seem like that is a big thing. And then like as a character or as a person, he doesn't really seem like he knows that that is not a good thing yet. And then he sort of gets his mind blown by Alice telling her that I have these needs too. Like I want to do the same thing as you. He's like, oh fuck.
You want to have sex with guys? Ew.
Yeah.
You know?
It seems as though that is a turning point where he realizes that maybe his thought process on the whole thing is completely wrong, or he just he's never thought about it in that way before, where he might have done it already. Because she's already suspicious the fact that he's even talking to the...
Yeah, he might have already cheated on her.
He might have already done it based off the fact that he's been hanging around with a guy like Ziegler.
Mm-hmm.
So, And
even like in the Ziegler scene where he doesn't question anything that Ziegler did. And that sort of hints like the class dynamics that I was talking about before, where he doesn't really... Like Ziegler has more power than him in that moment, so he doesn't really have the presence in, to go, hey, Ziegler, you got to stop
doing here?
having sex with hookers at your party, you maniac. You know how insane that is? Your wife's in the other room, He goes to Mandy, Mandy, you can't keep doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Ziegler's like, that was one hell of a scare you gave us, kiddo. It's like, dude, this kind of maybe your fault? Like, I don't know. It could
seems
be.
Like what I got was from he probably drugged her or something, and he's trying to play it off like...
That's interesting, yeah.
That's what I felt in the scene just from watching it. I felt... like he was trying to play it off as if she had done something bad, but he really just...
That's actually a good point because we don't know if because when she dies at the end, we don't really know. It's ambiguous whether she actually just had an overdose or she was drugged.
Mm-hmm.
And also with Mandy's character, the interesting thing is casting Abigail Good as Mandy in the orgy sequence is such a great idea because it adds this weird ambiguity of like, who is she? Is it the same girl? Who is this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does.
You mentioned the two models, Nuella and the other girl.
Mm.
It's so funny. One of the interesting observations I made is like it's nice and sexy when you're watching it because they're all like the tension's on, And then as soon as Bill walks away, it's like you're just with your friend and you have to turn off being sexy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're both like rubbing themselves. And as soon as Bill leaves, they look at each other and go, "All right, let's go."
All right, let's find someone else, I guess.
There's also I'll put the picture in. There's also did you notice when Bill is walking through the orgy and he sees this is something that was blacked out in the original theatrical cut. There's two women 69ing on the table, but they're not. I don't know why they blacked it out because they're not actually 69ing. They have masks on. They're just like they're miming it. But anyway, so they're miming.
That was the first thing I saw when I saw someone like going down on the other person.
Like, what?
They have a mask on. Like what?
Right.
But then it flipped the camera and there's just a guy with a big mouth. I was like, oh.
That's exactly what. So if you look, Bill's walking by and they show the girl 69, and then they cut to a reaction shot of Bill, and there's a guy behind him in a mask, and his face is like. Oh! I'll put a picture in, but if you're listening, it's just his mouth is agape, going like, "Holy shit!"
I didn't think of that. I didn't think that's why he had that kind of mask.
Oh, I thought it was just him being like, "Holy fuck!"
No,
awesome.
I thought the mask was like perfectly shaped for some. I don't know.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Anyway, how did you feel? How did you interpret? Because I've watched it a bunch of times, but the least interesting part of it to me is the whole relationship dynamics thing, because I don't really identify. I'm 25. I'm not married.
Mm-hmm.
As I get older, I imagine I identify with it more. But for now, that's just the least interesting thing, even though I get the mechanics and I get the gist of it. But how did you feel about that whole thing between Alice and Bill and him being like, oh, shit?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of the relationship thing, I did hear an interesting analysis afterwards. What was the one YouTube channel?
Oh, there's an hour-long video of this guy, Empire of the Mind, who talks about...
Yeah, he put an interesting idea in my mind where it's like, it's sort of in a relationship, if you are unfaithful to that person, you're kind of, you're hurting them, but you're hurting yourself at the same time. You're kind of like cutting a tie there and to sort of trust. And then if you do, you enter this dangerous area where if you don't tell them, you're living a secret life, kind of masked up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a dangerous place to be because once that person finds out, it's like you're
That's a
sacrificing
good
them.
point.
You know.
We should go watch his video instead of this
Yeah,
podcast.
well,
No, actually,
yeah,
don't click off, please. Please don't.
It
click.
is a good video. It like
I'll
that.
it'll be
put
in
it
the
in my
playlist in the
Mhm.
description.
Yeah, that thought process put it in my mind where it's like that's where you see because if you think about how the one masked woman goes up and says you shouldn't be here. This is dangerous for you. You know, you could lose or this could hurt me and you. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to be here. So that in a sense that's kind of how I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're hurting yourself and the other person, and you could cause bodily harm to them. Like bad things happen when you cheat.
It's funny because every time sex is shown as a prospect, it leads to something bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you look at this movie, every time sex occurs outside of the context of marriage or Bill and Alice's marriage, it's a terrible, dangerous, lethal thing.
Yeah.
So, if Bill had sex with Domino, he would have had HIV.
Mm-hmm.
If he had sex with Marion, he would have ruined this relationship and had sex with her next to her dead dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to the orgy, and of course that was super dangerous for him and his family.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Mr. Milich. Those guys were being pedophiles with his daughter,
Yeah.
and they get the police called on him, and then there was an arrangement that was worked out, a very terrible arrangement.
Yeah,
where
that was one of the things where we should talk about more. I mean, that was one of the things where I was struggling to kind of figure out where that fit into the whole.
That we'll talk about that when we get to the theories. Really quick, I want to finish the even when Ziegler has sex with Mandy, she overdoses. You know, and I think it's sort of speaking to like anytime you're doing sex without outside the context of marriage, it's dangerous, and when you have sex without emotion, it's ritualistic or something like that, where it's this weird charade where it doesn't really mean anything. And that's sort of like what the orgy speaks to, because they're all having sex, but it doesn't mean.
Yeah,
they're just rich people having sex with each other.
And they're all it's like a weird, serious thing in the air in the orgy scene where nobody seems like they're really enjoying themselves in a way.
Again, it's not like that's a good point. It's not like I don't know. I don't really know how to. Again, how are you supposed to like this movie is? You can't describe some of it just willy nilly. You have to like write it down and then recite it. You know. I think there's. Do you want to talk about the Yale thing?
Yeah, I did. I wrote that down because if that is a dream if it is in a dream, that is definitely. I mean, it's just suppressed thoughts about his own sexuality as a whole.
I'm so impressed that you understand the Yale thing as a reference. If you don't understand the Yale thing as a reference, there's a scene in American Psycho where he goes, I'm cool with that whole Yale thing. And Willem Dafoe goes, what? And he goes, the Yale thing. What he's referring to is just like homosexual stuff. I don't know why it's called the Yale thing. That's all I know about it. But okay, so let's talk about the gay stuff, because the gay stuff is very intentional in this movie. It's weird. Not weird in the fact that like that it being itself is weird. I'm saying the inclusion of it is weird given how how does this fit into the rest of the thing? So and also in the script, Alan Cummings' character, the guy who works at the hotel, it's very clearly stated that he has a gay lisp in the script. So that character was gay on purpose. There's the orgy sequence. When they bring Nick Nightingale across the hall, you can see a woman and a woman dancing, a man and a man dancing. So there's gay stuff there. All those guys on the street who are dressed up in Yale clothes, they bump into Bill and they're like, "Hey, gay slur, what's up, bud?" Yeah. And they do that and stuff. But again, like I don't know what it could be. But it's obviously Kubrick meant it, and it obviously means something. You know.
It means something, but there's so much other things going on. But
it's like, how does it fit
hard to
into
get
here?
too deep into that thought process.
You said you had an interesting thought about the dream. You said it yourself. I have an interesting thought. If it's not very interesting, I'm gonna
well, my thing is
very pissed.
We keep saying that if it is a dream, but if it isn't a dream and the reaction of the audience is to say that they think it is a dream, that's good writing in a sense that it's so strange. The topic is so strange, and some of the scenes are so bizarre that it might be the audience projecting onto the movie and being like, oh, that could only happen in dreams because people might just have, dreams like that where it's like they project their insecurities in their dreams about stuff like that.
They're projecting their anxieties onto. That's like people do with The Shining or even this movie. They can project their anxieties onto a movie, and that's a fair thing. Like people talk about, if you look at a lot of like YouTube comments now surrounding this movie, it's like, oh, it was ahead of its time because of the Jeffrey Epstein thing or whatever. And they try to make a link, like we talked about the deleted footage. They try to make a link with the Jeffrey Epstein type secret cabal of pedophilia with this movie, and that Kubrick was trying to expose that. It's like, I don't know, like the real world. I would debate the real world, connection of that with Kubrick, and like maybe he knew, but because he was very recluse, he didn't really brush out, like rub elbows with these people.
Yeah.
Maybe in like the '60s he did a little bit, but I think for somebody looking at that, that's just a testament to the movie, because there's a lot of movies where they're made and then 20 years later they're very relevant, right? So the Jeffrey Epstein thing is just an example of how good the movie is, because not that it predicted anything, but it's not out of its time. It's still sort of like ahead of its time in the sense that you can look at the world today and actually find value in Eyes Wide Shut based off of that context, which is interesting. I don't know why I thought to this, but the guy Milich, I want to take a second to talk about him, because the actor Raid Sagabara or whatever, I'll look up his name while we're talking. I think he is so good, Mr. Mill. Every line he delivers is the most memorable line. Where he's like, when he goes, how about $100? And he goes, $100 over the rental price. He goes, yes. And he goes, I don't think so. Like the best way you can. Or when he sees all the Chinese food in the room, he walks and he goes, what is this? Every line is so good, and also funny. He's the funniest thing in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Where, because it's in the script, that scene is verbatim from Dream Story, essentially, right? He goes in there and he finds these guys. He goes, "What are you doing? She's just a child." And then he does even the sorry that he does, where he goes, "Gentlemen, sorry for keep you waiting, doctor."
Yeah, yeah.
Gentlemen, like he,
as if
like
it's
the way
not
he
some
stops.
Crazy thing that
Right.
he just stumbled upon.
That's so good, and every single line that he delivers is so good.
And the fact that it's like 4 a.m. and he's up,
Yeah.
and ready to do business.
Well, that was his. He had 10 charisma, where he goes, I don't think so. He goes, how about $100? He goes, okay.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Fallout, so that.
Yeah, he picked up all the pit boys for that one. But, that also is interesting that he was going there looking for another person who is apparently his patient.
Yeah.
Who I would assume he'd seen in the last year, but that patient moved away a year ago and doesn't own that shop anymore, and he didn't even know.
Right.
So.
Well, they're in the script. It's just he goes up and he goes, Mr. Gibson, you don't know me, but I got to get in there. So maybe on the day they were like, it's not really interesting. Maybe if we I was thinking about that. Like that's weird.
It's weird that he doesn't know one of his patients is gone,
right?
But he remembers who he is because he probably has so many patients,
right?
But.
Let me see if there's any. Oh, no, I already talked about that. Also, his name was Raid Serbedzija. Sorry, I butchered. I can't, But,
look him up. I'm sure his pronunciation of the name is gonna really help you find him on Google. You might as well spell it out for him. Nobody's gonna be able to look him up after you say it like that.
Also, there's a really funny. The funniest line in the movie is when Nicole Alice gets pissed. And he goes, this pot is making you aggressive.
Yeah. It's like such a 1999 doctor thing to say.
He's such a frat boy boyfriend. Like, babe, this pot's making you aggressive.
Yeah. I wrote down in my notes, that's the nightmare blunt rotation. Like, let me get nice and high and then start grilling me about the 2 models last night. Thank you so much.
But also he lies, where he goes, I wasn't hitting on them.
Yeah, that's...
And I like his reaction where he's just like, what? And I love that the whole time he's just like, it's a couple of models.
Yeah, it's just a couple of models.
Like, yeah, it's like, okay, pal.
It's such a jerk thing to say.
Do you want to go through some theories? Because I feel like I don't want to just...
Yeah. Okay. So we'll discuss the theories now.
Yeah. Some fan
Well,
theories online, or some
yeah.
popular theories like we did in when we talked about the
So
Shining.
the first one, it was Kubrick trying to expose the Illuminati.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a very sensationalistic interpretation. Obviously, I don't think it was him going like, "Hey, I went to this party and look what I saw." Like people say it's analogous to, the moon landing thing in The Shining, where he's confessing that he faked the moon landing, right? And then people say this is a similar thing where he's confessing, maybe not a confession, but he's saying he's exposing what is really going on. Again, I think on the spectrum of this is exactly what he's doing and he knows everything, to it's not about that at all. Shut up. I think it's somewhere in the middle where
Yeah.
sort of like a soft, look at, hey, this takes place in a dream, but also this is still like something that happens because it was based off. The Rothschilds, I think in the 70s, had this thing called, it was like a surrealist ball where everybody had these weird, crazy masks. You can look it up. You can find pictures of it on Google, and I'm sure that was an inspiration behind the whole orgy sequence with the masks. And those masks are utilized very well, like the shot where he comes out and he cuts to all the compositions of everybody just staring. That's something similar to a movie called Election, where he rigged a high school election and he walks into the room. Matthew, what's his name? Ferris Bueller.
I don't know.
Fuck. It's like Matthew Brodard. I forget his name. Why do I forget his name? What the hell?
Don't.
Anyway, he walks in and everybody knows that he did it, and they just close up on the faces, but they cut from face to face, like dun, 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 you know what I mean? I don't know. That's a shitty observation. Anyway, but what were you
For
gonna
me,
say?
that one just seems a little surface level. I mean, I get what you're saying, where it's somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But I mean, if you think about the source material, he's mirroring that, and that happens in a different time period. So it's not like he's exposing something new that's happening. It's just kind of
Right.
modernizing the idea of that party, I guess.
Right.
And how it
But you
would
can also
probably
appropriate a story. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like you can appropriate a story for today's point of view. So like Paul Thomas Anderson's making, I think he's adapting Thomas Pynchon's Vineland. That takes place originally in the in the 80s with Ronald Reagan, but I think it might be modern day now. So you can kind of take a story and make it, but I think in terms, there was also, people talk about, there's a lot of masonry, Masonic symbols,
yeah.
which is like, I guess, I don't know much about that. I saw some stuff on it saying like, not really, sort of. There's some imagery in there, which is, we can look into. I can't speak on that because I don't know much about that. I didn't really get to that in this pass, but that's interesting.
Yeah. I'll read the next one. Eyes Wide Shut was trying to expose child grooming.
So this is a thing that's, I don't think saying that is a very schizophrenic idea, because I do think there's a couple of indicators of something about like something with kids, not I don't think as grand a conspiracy as the people who believe in that theory suggest. But also, this is a thing where, again, people look at the Jeffrey Epstein thing, and now their perspective on this movie has changed, which is valid, right? I'm not saying that they shouldn't believe this or anything. But a lot of that theory is based off of the quote unquote missing 20 minutes of footage, which I don't think exists, of where it was, a lot of the scenes that were cut out was he saw like there was children there at the orgy or whatever. And I don't think, even if it's not in the movie, again, you can't really say that conspiracy would extend into real world stuff where it's more of a real world conspiracy than the movie, because it's based off missing footage that isn't in the movie.
Yeah.
But stuff that is in the movie that's pretty interesting is the stuff with Milich's daughter, where he's kind of, sort of selling her out as a prostitute or whatever. There's some people who think that the Harford's daughter Helena gets kidnapped at the end, where when they're talking, there's these two men who apparently were used as extras at the masked ball scene, who are walking, and Helena kind of walks with them. It's not like they're in the background, they take Helena's hand. It's like sort of a weirdly circumstantial thing. And I think that's probably, maybe, in my opinion, it may be reading a little bit too much into it, where, Bill and Alice are talking, and they gave up their daughters so that they can live, or their daughter's being groomed to be one of the girls in the orgies. It's an interesting idea, and you could totally valid in your opinion. I just don't see that. But then another interesting thing where I'm like, that's a good point. Not that it's intentional. Like I don't think there was any intention behind it, which doesn't matter. But I think I'm like, that's an interesting find. Is there was I think I forget where I saw this. It might have been like on Reddit or something. But when all the women are kneeling around Red Cloak when he first walks in, they're about all like child height.
Mm.
And you could and if you go into that looking at like hey, if those are children, they can look like children in robes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's like a, oh he solved it. I'm just saying that's a very soft observation that's an interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Should I read the next one?
Yeah.
Ziegler is red coat, or Ziegler is red cloak. Sorry.
Yeah, we talked about that. Because one of the Rob Ager talks about how Ziegler or a Red Cloak taps the staff twice, and then when Ziegler's talking to Bill, in the pool room, he's like playing with the cue ball, and then he goes and taps it twice. But also the thing about that is in that scene, the carpet in the orgy room or or at least the ceremony room is all red, and then the pool table is red in Ziegler's office or Ziegler's pool room. And I think again, like how much of that is Kubrick saying, "Hey, this is Ziegler's Red Cloak," and how much of that is Red Cloak, Ziegler, Bill's version of dream version or fuck, I'm sorry. How much of Red Cloak is Bill's dream version of Ziegler? You know what I mean?
Ziegler, yeah.
So that's interesting. I buy that.
Mm-hmm.
I buy that in some way or another, those characters are connected somehow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just the fact that he admits to being there, but he never says who he is there.
Who do you? Let me ask you this, because I have no idea. Who do you think those two people are that look at Bill and nod to him?
That's one of the.
That's
that was
thing.
a
He
creepy.
just throws that in there.
That was creepy. I remember just feeling some weird way about that. Like it was definitely someone who's higher up. Maybe that is Ziegler.
Right.
That could be him.
I think because I think that's another thing that Kubrick does brilliantly, where he just throws something in there that makes the entertainment value even better.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. It's not like a David Lynch type thing where you're like, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that's such a weird thing that you threw in there. Why? And it makes you want to watch the movie more. Like he gets in there and he sees the guy look at him. How does he know that that's Bill? And he looks at it and nods at him, right? So it's a man and a woman. People say, okay, that can be Sandor Savost, I think that's his name, and Alice, right? That can be the man and the woman up there, and they're nodding at him. Or it can be Ziegler and his wife. Are we 47 minutes in?
No.
Okay. It can be Ziegler and his wife, or it can be Ziegler and Alice, or who are these people?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who it is. We have an idea, but it never cues us into who those people are, right? I suspect it could be Ziegler because later, when Bill's walking around the orgy, the same guy who nodded to him shows up with a lady, and she's like, "Hey, you want to go somewhere more private?" So you can take that as Ziegler being like, "Hey, go show this my friend a good time," sort of.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't. But again, there's another ambiguity, and is she taking him away to have sex with him, or is she taking him away so that somebody can go kill him or bag him or whatever? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's even an ambiguity in those two things where it doesn't give you a clue.
Yeah. My first thought when he sent the one girl up to him, I thought her mannerisms were very much like the one who asked him if he wants to go to the end of the rainbow. I thought there was a connection.
You thought it was like one of the models?
I thought it was a connection between those two, for sure.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
And I think either way, if they're, again, dream or non-dream, there's a connection between those two because those two probably would be at that party.
Definitely.
If they're at that party and then if they're at Ziegler's party,
I mean, Mandy was at the
gonna
party.
Yeah.
So. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next one?
Ziegler owns the newspaper.
So this is something that's like, this is sort of getting into the weeds a little bit where, so like there's a lot of interpretations of this, which can be valid because a lot of people, when they talk about their ideas, like Kubrick meant this and he meant this, a lot of his intentions don't matter once the movie, like in this case, it's a literal interpretation of, or a little instance of the death of the author, where like once the movie's made, the author has no say on how it's interpreted or whatever. People can, and I think that's true. I like that because movies are supposed to be prisms of interpretation where you look at something and go, "Holy shit, it's Jeffrey Epstein stuff," and then I look at it and go, "Holy shit, like Bill and Alice, their relationship was so interesting." Like you can see different things, like you can slice it many different ways. But with this, I do think there's some interesting stuff, but I think it might be incidental. But I certainly can't see it because it just adds more depth to Ziegler's character. So, Bill goes into we never know Ziegler's wealth. Why is he's so wealthy? He never says like, oh, this is what bomb in the Middle East gets you. Like I don't know, but what?
This is what Bob in the Middle East gets you.
No, I said bombing the Middle East. Like Halliburton.
I thought you said Bob. I was like, okay, Bob.
No, because Halliburton, Dick Cheney's company, they would just bomb the Middle East and then get all the contracts to build stuff up again. But so that people think he owns the newspaper because when Bill goes into Sharky's, which is the cafe where he gets coffee and then he looks at the newspaper and he sees that Mandy is dead or whatever, Rob Ager talks about in particular, oh, this is Ziegler putting that story in the paper because why would that story be in the paper? That a girl OD'd in New York.
Well, she wasn't dead.
Or I said she OD'd.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
But it says like ex-beauty queen overdose in a hotel. And it's like maybe the fact that she's an ex-beauty queen, if she was known, would get her in the paper. But why else would that story be in the paper? How many people overdose in New York?
Yeah. So
people are saying, oh, that could be Ziegler talking to Bill. And also the newspaper, there's an interesting thing with the newspaper where it says lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
There's a funny part in this video by Broe Deschanel where she's talking about, Bill goes here and it turns out that the girl had HIV because it's the second half of the movie is him realizing that all these near misses.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then the newspaper says, lucky to be alive. Go home, Bill. He's like, nah, I think I could still do stuff,
Yeah.
So people think that's why maybe Ziegler owns the newspaper.
Yeah. And that specific newspaper that he picks up that says that definitely calls a lot of attention to itself, that it says that.
Lucky to be alive. Again, that's another thing. Like Ziegler's telling him, like, dude, you're fucking lucky to be alive. Because, again, they haven't talked yet. And he only brings him in when he realizes, like, all right, I have to talk to Bill,
Yeah. Like he's still going around him. Yeah.
Also, an interesting thing about when he's being stalked, when the guy, the stalker crosses the street and he stands next to a stop sign.
Oh. Okay.
So you can construe that as like Bill. He's telling Bill stop doing this. Also, the sign says CMB on it. I don't know what that. I looked up what it means. Some people, it's like, oh, it's configurative, ergonomic biometrics, like some weird computer shit, I forget. And then went on Urban Dictionary, and you can assume what CMB meant in Urban Dictionary, but there was another one. It was like cash money bitches. Like, I don't think Kubrick intended for it, like to mean, I don't know. I was like, maybe CMB means something, but I couldn't. I looked it up.
There is a lot of background that we could probably get into. I want to watch it a couple more times and just pay attention.
We could do a commentary and just be like, look at that.
Yeah,
I would love to do commentaries.
Yeah, that would be fun. Just focusing on the background of this movie. There's probably so much going on.
I was doing that when I was watching it the other night when I accidentally watched half of it. And also, one of the things, they filmed most of this on Steadicam. So if you look, the camera is rarely locked off and still. You can always see there's a little bit of a jiggle or a shake because the camera's always on a Steadicam, which is interesting.
Yeah, but with wanting to go back and watch the background, I was trying to not do that too much of that. Just watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I would miss something in the dialogue or whatever. But I will say I would like to go back and just see if there's anybody who you can notice following him in the, because we know he's being followed after Ziegler tells him, and obviously after the guy is like clearly following him. But I noticed one guy walking in the background. He walks out of the elevator when he goes to the hotel to find Nick Nightingale. And there's a guy who walks out of the elevator where I'm like, he looks like he has the same hair as the guy in the gold mask who leads him into the room.
Right.
So that, he's probably just a higher up guy who, in my mind, I thought like, that's probably the same guy. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'd like to go back and see if there's more of that.
Well, that kind of like lines up with that theory that Helena gets kidnapped because the two guys are in the background there. Like, why are these two old men together in a toy store?
Yeah. They're just there.
That's interesting. What's the next one?
Alice is
also. I'm sorry. I like the idea though of them just kind of watching him
Yeah.
without you knowing,
Mhm.
because I don't know.
And possibly having to watch him just the rest of his life, just because he knows this one secret
Yeah.
about their whole society. Okay, Alice is part of the secret society.
Yeah, that goes into a lot of interpretations where I'm like, I don't see that, but fair enough, whatever. Is the secret society Nick Nightingale was in on it
Mm-hmm.
because the secret society wanted to recruit Alice and Helena, so they got Nick to to tempt Bill into
To
going
go
to
in
the
there.
thing so they can get her, or that Alice was at the party, and then that's why she describes that dream to him because she's messing with him again or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a really good point, or like the Nick Nightingale, like him being in on it. I'm not entirely convinced by that, but there is a weird way that he's shot in that scene where he almost looks like this tempting kind of devilish character where he's telling Bill about the story and he has this weird goatee and there's literally a crystal ball light and
Oh.
he's lit like you're holding a flashlight under you and he's like, I've seen a few things, pal.
Mm-hmm.
The women here are crazy. You should check it out. Hey, can I check it out? Are you crazy? I'm not going to let you check it out. Like he's sort of like teasing him a little bit. And then once Nick Nightingale in this is the one in the scene being like, no, come on, man. He leans back and he's not lit in that weird like devilish manner anymore. And then it's Bill who leans forward and he's like, you're going to give me that password. And he turns into this devilish character, which is an interesting lighting setup that you don't really see that much.
Yeah. It's like he's passing the temptation on to him.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Alice being in on it is interesting, but yeah, again, there's not a lot of like her knowing where a lot of the things they say is her knowing where the mask is.
Mm-hmm.
Is very indicative that maybe she knew about the thing.
Mm-hmm. But is it ever clear that she's the one who put the mask there?
No,
That's where
it's not, and I want to talk about that. I don't know if I talked about this in the Stanley Kubrick episode, but I want to talk about this because it's weird. When we talked about Barry Lyndon, I talked about how there's that movie, in order to keep up this objective perspective, except for one scene where Barry Lyndon's, I'm not gonna say what happens just in case for spoilers, but there's a scene, except for one scene, what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie and Barry Lyndon, that's very emotional. Kubrick intentionally kind of moves the perspective around so that he kind of doesn't cue you into what's going on in the characters, right? So there's a scene where Barry Lyndon makes a very important decision in Barry Lyndon where he decides not to shoot Lord Bullington, who's played by Leon Vitali. And like we can sort of infer why situationally, but Kubrick never cuts to a close up or even just a shot where we can see Barry Lyndon's face while he's making that decision. So and that movie has a very objective perspective, but this is sort of the inverse of that. I talked about how they have similarities in the class dynamics, but they also have similarities in the fact that their perspectives are polar opposites. Where this is a very subjective experience that might be inside Bill's psyche and even in a dream, right? But then there's a weird thing that he does where after he gets home and he turns the Christmas lights off that symbolize I'm done trying to get laid. I'm turning these Christmas lights off because I know they symbolize my sexual desire. He says that in the movie.
Yeah.
And then he turns them off and but actually no, that's not true. It's Ziegler going, you know that, don't you? I'm definitely not going to kill you, pal. And then it cuts to the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Kubrick cueing us in on the scene before Bill knows it? Because we've been inside Bill's head this whole movie. How come all of a sudden we are seeing the mask there before he sees it? And then he comes in, turns the light off, gets a beer. A minute later, then he sees the mask. Like, why is that just a remnant of Kubrick not spending more time on the edit? Maybe he would have taken it out if he lived to see the end of the post production. That's just a very interesting thing. Like, I don't know why that is. If you know why, please comment if you're watching on YouTube. Really quick, going back to the child grooming thing, I do think it's I do think maybe Milich's daughter is maybe Bill's dream version of Helena. Like maybe he has this fear of her getting swept up in any kind of exploitation. I don't really know. I haven't been really able to tap into that, but I think the child grooming theory sort of would make sense in that context, which I guess I'll give her credit in that sense.
Yeah,
I think it's just an interesting, and we'll get to Milich's daughter soon.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get to that.
Oh, right, we're gonna get to that right now.
If you want to,
yeah, you skip to that one really quick because we're already on the subject.
Milicic doesn't have a daughter. Sorry.
Milich doesn't have a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and then credit
Credit Stuart Lenz 8586
on YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah.
So I was watching this YouTube. I forget which one it is, but I saw the comment by Stuart Lenz 85 whatever too, and I'm like, that's pretty good. I like that a lot. Where he goes, that's not Milich's daughter.
Yeah.
That's just a girl that he's basically, either kidnapped or whatever, who isn't his daughter, and he's just selling her out to these guys, right? And the only reason he got angry was because Bill was there, because they're hiding, right? But then because maybe they see Bill or something, maybe they don't, whatever. But then Milich gets in and he goes, Milich, have you gone crazy? The lady invited us or whatever. And then he locks them in the room. And then the next morning, Bill comes out and he goes, oh, we made an arrangement or whatever. And the idea is, they just paid him off or whatever. And
after he held them for ransom.
Right,
basically.
but under this context, I like it because I've been thinking that that's Milich's daughter and that he was genuinely pissed. And then the next morning, they paid him a bunch of money. He was like, fine, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I like it in this context, too, where that isn't his daughter. And that just adds another thing where there's like this weird kind of dreamy, like, who are these characters? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
There's a crazy one wild night,
Mm-hmm. And he sort of switches more into a business-like thing with her where he says, if you need anything,
Yes, exactly.
she can help you
Anything
out.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that a
Which
lot.
doesn't seem like if she was actually his daughter and he was so mad the other night, what could have possibly happened between now and then that changed his mind that much where he's like selling her out?
Right,
you know?
exactly. So good observation, Stuart Lenz.
Very nice, Stuart Lenz. Shout out Stuart Lenz.
Jeez, I think he gets it.
You're the best, man.
Oh my God.
Domino might have a baby.
Yeah, this is sort of the only indication of this is one thing. There's a stroller outside Domino's apartment when Bill first gets there, and then when he goes there later and Sally's there, it's moved.
That's it.
That's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Word. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Sick. Nick is sleeping with the diner waitress.
I think this is true. So Bill goes to the diner. And he's like, hey, do you know where she's staying? And she's like, I don't want to give out his address. And then so she does know where he is. It's weird that he would maybe he's been playing there for a couple of days and he goes into the cafe.
Yeah, but
and he's friendly with her, but it's weird that maybe I'm staying at the whatever hotel, like maybe sure. But also when he mentions Nick Nightingale, she's like, yeah, I know Nick Nightingale. He comes in here sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And she seems and she only hands over the information when Bill goes, hey, some tests, and gives her like an HIV scare. So maybe she's like, oh shit.
Oh
go
yeah.
tell him.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right. Because
Yeah.
I think it would have been obvious because he doesn't cut to a reaction shot, which is weird because at the end of that scene where he goes at some tests, and then we just cut to Bill at the hotel, right? But at the end of the scene, so she doesn't get a close up, even though there might be something going on there. But then when we cut to the hotel scene with Alan Cummings gets a close up at the end. Like Bill walks out and it just cuts to Alan Cummings going like
yeah,
that.
like
Maybe
wipes
Kubrick
off
just liked the gesture, but I think there was more going on that warranted a close up.
reaction from her.
Right, but maybe it cued you in too much on like her going like, oh fuck,
Oh fuck, yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with these theories, like me saying whether I believe in them or not, I'm not trying to discredit or debunk any.
No.
You can't really debunk an interpretation like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the Domino having a baby. Like if you see that, that's fine. I can't be like, well, actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's an interpretation. In this book, the Eyes Wide Shut book, the making of, with Robert Kolker and Nathan Abrams. At first, they were talking about all these theories, and they were talking about like one thing that I don't see, where they're talking about, well, when Bill goes to the orgy, there's a sign while he's driving over there that says Happy Holidays. And two of the bulbs on the left side of the H are out, and it gives the impression of a lowercase h in front of the word. This is a reference to it being a Masonic symbol or whatever, and this is why it's connected to the 33rd degree Masons or whatever. I think that's what they were talking about. I'm not sure. But in the book, they were like, can you believe all these wacky conspiracy theorists and stuff? And I was a little like, well, this is their like you can't, maybe this the stuff that has real world implications, like Kubrick was murdered, you can debunk that. But this is sort of their interpretation. But at the end of the chapter, they were like, but at the end of the day, they're just looking at the movie really hard and they're enjoying it.
Yeah, that's
who gives a shit,
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the main conclusion of a movie that can have this many theories. It's
Right.
It's cool that so many different people can have that many, like literally this many theories about it.
Right, and
It's
that's
one of
what
those
sort of a movie I think should do. Not all movies need to do that.
Yeah,
Not all movies need to be a certain this or a certain that. But I think it would benefit from. That's why. That's why like political messages or any kind of messages that cue you into. You could tell the writer is just like, I need to say capitalism is bad here. It's like the way Kubrick would say capitalism is bad is much more interesting than a character going. And that's why we live in capitalism today, folks. Like Idris Elba being like, all the things that suck, capitalism. It's like, dude,
that's capitalism for you,
right? It's like we get it. Like we know that it's not like the best thing ever. But like, say it in a more interesting way than a character being like, ooh.
Yeah, I guess so.
Does that make? Am I making sense?
No,
or do
it
I
makes-
just sound like I watch too much Fox or something?
No, no. I definitely don't think that. I think it makes sense.
Okay. What else should we talk about? Look. If you're still here, thank you. Trust me, it's getting good.
Yeah.
We got some good stuff coming up. 2 hours in. Again, I said sex. I like that. Like sex is dangerous outside the context of marriage. I like the series of near misses that Bill goes through.
Yeah.
And I want to, because I talked about the Christmas lights a lot in the last podcast, and I want to just sort of not go over it again, but I want to talk about instances where I can't really explain why, other than it just being incidental. Like the first time we see the Christmas lights, it's interesting because the first shot of the movie, sort of, other than Nicole. Also, that might have been an addition after Kubrick's death. The shot of Nicole Kidman at the beginning. That might have been something that was added that he didn't want or he didn't think to put. But the first shot of the movie is the establishing shot of Bill and Alice's apartment building, and there's no Christmas lights anywhere. And actually, there's the Jewish thing. We didn't talk about the Jewish thing. So in the book, obviously Schnitzer was very Jewish, and in the book, Fridolin is Jewish. And there is some Jewish commentary and stuff. And that was actually one of the things that Frederick Raphael and Kubrick quarreled over, is the fact that Kubrick was taking a lot of the Jewish element out of it. But it's weird because there is some Jewish stuff that he sort of still put in. Like there's a menorah. The first shot of Bill, he's looking for stuff in his apartment, and there's just a menorah there. And if you don't know what a menorah is, it's the candles that they light, the Jewish people light around Hanukkah. Hanukkah. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Curious.
So it's like, why would he put that? Why would he put that in? And then people say like Ziegler is Jewish because Sidney Pollack is Jewish, and he looks Jewish, and Ziegler could sort of maybe be a Jewish name. It's funny that the Steadicam operator had the same name. I've never heard Ziegler any time ever, other than the 2 instances in Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool name.
But the Christmas lights. The first time we see the Christmas lights is after Bill turns off the music, and we don't see any Christmas decorations in in Alice's bedroom in that first Steadicam shot. And then once they go into the living room into the hallway, we see that there's Christmas decorations, and the camera pans. As soon as Bill sees the babysitter, the Christmas lights show up. Right, so you can say, "Ooh, like Bill maybe thinks she's hot or something like that." But then of course, then Helena is in the frame, and there's Christmas lights behind her. And it's like, okay, I don't think Bill's trying to have sex with his daughter, but maybe that's probably just incidental, whatever, right? But then, so you would see that, like, people would reference the Helena shot being like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. And you're like, yeah, you're right, but there's some other instances where it is so, obvious. It feels so, intentional. Where, like, for example, there's when Bill walks into I mentioned this before. Bill walks into Marion's room. He's framed with the Christmas lights. Carl walks in. There's no Christmas lights behind him, and he's just like the most boring guy ever, right? And then speaking of that same through line, later when Bill, I think it's after Sally, after he sees Sally, which also that scene has that Christmas. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but he gets to the Domino's apartment with the bakery stuff, and he goes, "Hey, it's Bill."
Yeah,
and then she's like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here." And then as soon as she opens the door, you can see the Christmas lights as soon as they make eye contact, and it's right in between them, right? And that whole scene, there's Christmas lights. Then he's contemplating calling up Marion, right? And we see earlier when he goes to the office, the Christmas light wasn't on. When we see the montage of him being like, "Hello, Lisa, like schedule some appointments, idiot," And later, after he comes back from Sally telling him that Domino has HIV, the camera pans across the room, and then we see the Christmas light is like the sole light
Yeah, it's the only
in the
light
room,
on in
and then there's the
whole
light pouring
office.
out from Bill's office, and we see him just sitting there going, God damn it, I have a boner right now."
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then he calls somebody on the phone, and then Carl answers, and then he just doesn't answer. And that's a great way of saying, sort of without dialogue, that he wants to have sex with Marion, and then he just hangs up the phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, him turning off the Christmas lights at the end. And then also the juxtaposition of whenever we're seeing people talk about sex or like wanting sex, there's Christmas lights, and then whenever sex has just happened or at the orgy sequence, the Christmas lights. I think that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that was one thing I was paying attention to the whole time because you were talking about it the last time, and it seems very intentional.
right, or even when he
Yeah.
goes to the hospital to see Mandy, there's a Christmas tree in the background right in between Bill and the hot receptionist nurse lady at the hospital. And then when he gets into the morgue, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And also, it's weird how because usually if we were gonna cast an orderly in a hospital, right, we would just go, I don't know, just cast one, right? But in the script it says a black orderly.
Yeah.
It's like why did Alan Cummings need to be gay? Why did the orderly need to be black? Like what is the intention there? Because there's no black people in the Dream Story. It's Vienna, 1920s. So like why was he? I'm not saying it's like anything racist or anything. I'm just saying
No,
why is
yeah.
that a detail that he needed to put in? Like what was he up to?
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a lot of stuff in that in the movie where that gets me excited. Where the stuff that I don't know, the fact that I don't know some stuff, and I'm still talking about this movie after doing all this research and talking with you for like 2 hours about it, and the fact that there's still stuff I don't know or I'm not familiar with, is like how have I not gotten to everything?
Yeah, exactly.
Like how do I sort of know nothing about the masonry stuff? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But the thing is too, with everything that's out, I mean, at this point, you probably won't know some of it. You're just not going to know some
yes, there's stuff that's unknowable.
of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Unless there was, 20 more minutes of the movie that we could see. No, I'm just kidding. No, but some of it's just, it's meant. I mean, I can't say it's meant to be, but you're just not going to know it.
Right. I don't think Kubrick ever expected anybody to connect the dots of who are those people on the balcony. That was just made for people to argue about it until infinity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That I just said, not you.
Well,
No, I'm kidding. No, that was your point.
Mm-hmm. But
not me, 99. You won. No, I'm kidding.
Well, what do you think about that guy standing in the room while Bill just slowly gets close to Mandy's dead body?
Right.
I was thinking that's weird.
Well, so in the book, okay, so that scene in the book, Fridolin goes to the morgue because this is basically the movie. It happens the exact same way in the book, right? He goes to the morgue after he sees in the newspaper that the lady is dead, or she had an overdose, and he goes there. And when he does that leaning in, he does that in the book, and he leans in, and the doctor he's with goes, "Mr. Fridolin, what are you doing?"
Oh, okay.
And he's like, "Sorry," but in this, Kubrick cuts to the nurse, and he's not even looking at Bill. He's just looking at the ground. So why would you cut to him if he was, other than the fact that he's looking at him and we're like, oh, and Bill's like, oh. Like maybe he cut to that guy because he wanted to use a different take of Bill being like, oh, yes, I got to get the fuck out of here now.
Oh,
You know what I
okay.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that was a weird moment where, because in the book, that's him trying to see if it's the same girl. Because,
Yeah, he's trying to look into the eyes. He's just trying, he can't
Right.
see the eye.
no, he can't. Her eyes are open in the
Yeah.
morgue.
Never mind. Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. That's what's so brilliant about it, is because even though she's lying dead on the morgue, I can't tell you if that's the same actress who played Mandy. The only way I can confirm that is if I go into IMDb. You know what I mean? And then having Abigail Good as the version, that's such a great way to just put an abstraction over that character, where you never really know, even though you're still like, is that the same? Like, who the what?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that seems like a cheap way of learning how, if it really is the same character by looking at IMDb.
I'm saying that's the only way I know it's the same actress. I mean, not the.
So it is.
It's the same actress in the morgue and in the Ziegler's bathroom is the same actress.
Oh, okay.
But at the orgy, it's a different actress.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you never know if in the story. I mean, Ziegler says it is at the end, but still.
But hardly he's not like the most trustworthy.
He's not. No.
Because you think he has this kind of paternal thing to Bill, But then in that scene, you go back 100 times, like, oh, okay, wait, what? Okay, what?
Mhm.
So like then everything's fine. He's like, oh, she was a hooker, locked from the police are happy. Boom, end of story. The fact that he says police are happy and then he knows everything about her door being locked from the inside is weird.
Yeah,
You know, that can be construed as they killed her. But then he goes, people die all the time. It happens all the time. But you know that, don't you, honey?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like starts massaging his shoulders. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing, dude?
Yeah, it's but at the same time, from the paternal perspective, I mean, I can see why he would be just saying, "She's dead." The police are
Yeah.
happy. No more. Let it go. You're going into dangerous areas. He's almost in a way trying to protect him, but also he's very untrustworthy because that's such a simplified way of saying, yeah, she was at the party, and then all this weird things happen where she said, like she said, I'm ready to change whatever she says.
Yeah, she said, I will redeem him.
Yeah, I will redeem him, and then the people are like, you know what that means?
Yeah.
So for
That's
him,
such a good.
mhm.
That's such a good scene because. Believe it or not, Kubrick, this was something that Frederick Raphael talked about. Kubrick was inspired by Pulp Fiction for that scene. Because it has to be dangerous like the Gimp scene. Where he goes there and it's just, you're like, oh shit. Because Kubrick loved Pulp Fiction. And he goes, you have to have that tension of that danger. And the fact that all these people are there and they know who, like when Bill takes off the mask, you're like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And even the way it's shot, that shot when they're all looking up, it's such an amazing image. The circle of people with masks and then Tom Cruise and Red Cloak at the center and they're all looking up. Like that's such a great,
Yeah, that makes sense. The tension is always there in that scene. Even when he's walking around, you get a sense that, I mean, obviously before that with the music, that's super terrifying. That immediately conveys that something is off.
Yeah.
To me at least.
And again, that's a moment where we're right in Bill's head, where that music doesn't cue, and we don't know that everybody's staring at him until he stops, and then the music cues, and then Kubrick cuts to everybody looking at him, right? So why didn't he do that for the mask? Why does he cut to the mask before Bill walks in? I want to know.
If you know, comment.
Screw it. Next month we're doing this again.
Yeah, we're gonna watch it
again.
We're gonna watch it 6 more times each, and then have a
Yes.
whole nother thought process on the whole movie,
Yes.
probably.
Shit. Do you think there's anything else we can say?
Nope.
Comment below if you want us to keep saying stuff.
Yeah. Let us know if you
No, hold on,
actually
wait.
want us
Let
to
me
keep saying
let me just
stuff.
look through because if everybody's watching now, they're not gonna click off just because we're taking a little bit of time to figure out what to say next. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Please don't click off. Hold on. Pause making you aggressive. Definitely.
He's just checking the weather.
Dude, one of the notes I wrote was definitely a weird movie.
Oh,
Great
whoa,
fucking
dude.
commentary, Johnny. Before we go, I just want to make sure there's nothing I left.
Mhm. Just squeeze it out, Cruz. Just squeeze it out.
I don't want this to end.
Yeah, get it out of your brain. You've been dying to talk about this movie. I can
Yeah.
tell. I mean, you were
And
dying to talk about it when we first talked about it, and then I feel like since then you
Yeah.
wanted to get more thoughts out on it.
It's well, I do think it was the Kubrick movie of his sort of like 2001 to on that I felt like I didn't really
Mhm.
figure out the most. But it's funny because in my writers group I told them that I was going to do a podcast on Eyes Wide Shut,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, okay, because they're all like, yeah, Eyes Wide Shut's weird. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I understand all your thoughts. They're like, I saw when it came out and it kind of sucked.
Oh,
And
really?
I'm like, I get it. But and I was like, also, I promise I'm not, I just don't like it because of the weird sex stuff. I think there's actually other stuff going on.
Mhm.
And they're like, nah, dude, you're a deviant, dude. And then my mom heard it and went, not my boy.
That's adorable. That's
So-
hilarious.
So yeah, I was very excited to talk about this.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to do it next month too.
What are we doing next month?
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh yeah, we're just doing Eyes Wide Shut again.
No, we're not. We're not.
What do you guys think we should do next?
I think we should do I would like if we alternate between a single movie because I really like this. I like just
this is
cranking
fun.
on one movie.
Mhm.
But I do like the director ones, even though they're a little bit more work. I mean, either way, these things take like a month to research.
Yeah.
I think it should go, director, one movie, director, one movie.
But I was asking them actually. I want to know what they want.
Oh.
It's not about what you want, Cruz.
Yeah. Well, I really don't want to end this podcast.
Yeah, I can tell.
I really don't want to keep talking about it, Danny.
Yeah. No. I'm trying to think of any more questions that you might want to answer.
Because I'm going to turn this on again. Oh, there was one. They were talking when they were researching the movie. Frederick Raphael said he had to talk with Kubrick where he's like, hey, if you're a doctor, you talk about, what about this? And he goes, I don't know, like call a doctor, Stanley. I don't know. He's like, oh yeah, good idea. And then he goes, yeah, that doctor friend of me told me that he wouldn't be wearing the jacket in this scene. So that's good. And he goes, all right, nice, Stanley. And then there was another thing that came up about like being a doctor, and it was like a week later. And he goes, hey, Stanley, why don't you call that doctor friend of yours? And he goes, we don't talk anymore.
What could have possibly happened?
What could they have said? Again, that's an Eyes Wide Shut moment. Where like somebody would say that and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, what? Like, why? Yeah.
All right, I think I'm going to finally end this thing. I think we should finally end it.
Came to a slow grinding halt.
We really milked out like the last 20 minutes of like saying we're going to end it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth trying to think more into, but it's like almost like the movie, you can't end it. It's hard to end.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of a good spot to jump off.
I think there's one thing that we should do as soon as possible, though.
What? What is that?
I don't want to say it.
Fuck.
All right, Jesus. All right, on that note.
No, you got to end it on fuck.